around, they take the first inch, it'll grow back.
Huh.
It'll repair itself, it'll completely repair itself.
Well, they went through her artery down into her liver. How they did it, drilled a tunnel.
Hopefully put her out.
Yeah, was, it was a mess. Yeah, scary.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. As a matter of fact, if you're a match or somebody and their liver fails like that, they can actually take part of your liver and plant it in them.
oh, is that right?
And it'll,
I'll be dang, I didn't know that.
and my computer's right. I'm ready. Are we ready?
You bet.
Okay, I call this meeting to order, and would like to thank those that are participating today, both here and online. We thank you for being here. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance, be led by Chantel Delonis.
Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, all of our board is in attendance except for one, and we're hoping that she'll be here shortly, so. There are a few addendum materials on the following subjects: recognitions, a written comment, media report, and community relations update, and the Highland High School update. I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda with the addendum. Is there a motion?
I move that the board approve the agenda as presented.
Is there a second? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
That passed. That motion is passed. I guess is there any opposed? But I guess that motion passed. Next on the agenda is to approve the minutes. I would entertain a motion to approve the following minutes as presented. The board work session for May 9th, executive session, student discipline for May 10th, regular board meeting for May 16th, special meeting for action, and executive session personnel May 24th. Is there a motion?
I move that we approve the minutes as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I see none. That motion passed. Next on the agenda is approve the consent agenda, which includes authorizing the payment of claims, approving the supplemental financial information, and approving the human resource activity. Is there a motion?
I hereby move that the board approve the consent agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I see none. That motion passed. Next on the agenda is the self-explanatory reports, which include Idaho General Fund Revenue Report, the Food Service Free and Reduced Meal Eligibility Report, Year-End Food Service Outstanding Balance Report, Kindergarten Counts, and Student Suspension Reports. I guess there's no action on that, is there? Okay. Next on the agenda is recognitions, and will be presented by Courtney Fisher.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, trustees, Dr. Howell, Ms. Johnson. So normally we suspend our recognitions during the summer. However, you may or may not be aware that June is Idaho School Board's board member recognition month. So in honor and gratitude to the more than 800 school board members across Idaho, the Idaho School Board Association designates June 2023 as School Board Appreciation Month. This annual event provides each of us with the opportunity to honor the important role and dedication of our local school board's members and express thanks and gratitude for your public service. School Board Recognition Month honors the countless hours of service made by the unpaid elected volunteers who serve on Idaho's school boards. As local leaders, you give your time and energy to tackle budgets, oversee the management of local public schools, and serve our local communities. School board members carry out the truest form of representative government in our democracy, volunteer public service, and help preserve public education. So on behalf of the School District 25 administration, we would like to take this opportunity to recognize each of you for your local leadership and service to the nearly 12,500 learners that we serve, and also nearly 1,700 staff members. You really go above and beyond with your hard work, time, and effort to support and embody the district's mission to think more, learn more, and be more together. So with that, we have a little gift for each of you in recognition of your service for Jim Facer, our board chair. Paul Vitale, our board vice chair.
Thanks, Renee.
Heather Clark, our assistant treasurer. Dee-
I'm clerk.
Oh, did I? Oh, it is, okay,
Oh, I did.
okay.
It is.
And Angie Oliver, member. I'm so sorry. My mistake.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for your service, and we wanted everybody here in attendance to just thank you for all you do. Maybe-
Thanks. That was fun.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks. Okay, Jonathan.
Of course.
There.
Thanks. Thanks. Thanks, baby.
Well, that was nice. We thank you.
Nice.
Thank you, this is so nice.
It's our pleasure to serve you. I hope you know that, so.
Well deserved.
That's my favorite place.
Okay, next on the agenda is public written comment on topics not pertinent to the agenda items. The written comment was received, it is included in the packet. I have not received any request for public comment, have we? Okay, so we'll move on. We'll now move on to reports, which include the media and community relations update presented by Courtney Fisher.
I'm going to be brief tonight, so I'm not going to sit. The media report is in your board packet addendum and includes links to articles of interest from May 16th through June 19th, yesterday. We had several articles of interest, which I encourage you to take a look at your convenience. Pocatello High School earned the 4A state title for the first championship in baseball in over a decade, so that's really great news. Results from the May 16th statewide levy and bond initiatives, that's really important as we start to consider some similar initiatives locally. Chronic absenteeism is on the rise among Idaho students. Fentanyl awareness campaigns, including a local leadership presented by Roger Scheid, Chief of the Pocatello Police. We had several class of 2023 graduation stories. There was an interesting article about Boise schools managing declining enrollment, so that's something we always track, and so that's of interest. Idaho's moving to change its high school classifications through the Idaho High School Activities Association, so that's really important to be aware of. And then we had a really great story about having the highest retention rate, among the highest teacher retention rate in Idaho. So that was a really positive story for us as well. And then former Superintendent Rulon Ellis was remembered for nearly 40 years in Pocatello schools, and what a man. So we appreciate his service and that story as well. Live stream, we've only had one board meeting since we last met, our May 16th regular board meeting, since we didn't have a work session in June, and that had 260 views. Our social media, that's really staying on track with where we've been, and same thing with Google Analytics. You'll notice a pretty significant decrease in traffic on our website, but that just makes sense with where we're at with school ending and transitioning into summer. We will start to see that trend increase with traffic right after the 4th of July holiday. It is like a ticking clock. When people get through celebrating the 4th, they want to know when we go back to school what the school supply lists are. So we will be poised and ready to share that information right once we get back from that holiday. Our top 5 unique page views are pretty standard. We did have our homepage is always first, our calendar, graduation, which we put up profiles, galleries for all graduation ceremonies, and so I'm happy to see that those got significant traffic and views. We had some great pictures taken by Idaho State Journal and our own Cami Chopsky here, and then HR, and then our school staff pages. And then just a couple of links to some stories that we've created, content that we've created in-house through the communications team, Stronger Together with that t-shirt and that initiative. We wanted to give that vendor who donated those t-shirts some recognition. It was really fun to go out to the schools and present those t-shirts, hand them out with that Stronger Together logo. So there's a story about that. And then also Purposeful Play, which was an initiative with kindergarten teachers, with our instructional coaches. There's a story about that because we had really significant community support for FMC and others, the Idaho STEM Action Center. So we love to do those stories to show the great things our district is doing, but also to give our sponsors the recognition and for their support that they deserve. So that concludes my report.
Okay,
Thank you.
Barney. Okay, next on the agenda is presentations of the proposed revenue and expenditure budget for the 2023-2024 school year and budget hearings. The budget presentation will be provided by Jonathan Balls and Carl Smart.
Good evening, board members. I think I get to start a little bit, but first I wanted to acknowledge Carl's effort in putting together this slide presentation for you, as well as this great 264-page document for all the details of our budget. I do sincerely appreciate all the work that he does. So I'll start and then kind of tag team a little bit. There we go. Just the page down button. That'll work. Okay, we'll first, again, you're familiar with some of these slides. Again, a breakdown of last year and this year of all the various funds and the percent of the overall budget. Again, you can see general fund by far is the larger budget again this year, with the bigger increase due to the ESSER funds decreasing as you look at that. Second is the plant facility. The next slide is our history of fund categories. Different funds there of general fund, federal fund, ESSER fund, and so forth. As you see, a 4-year history there with fiscal year 24 is before you this evening for your approval. Again, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to stop us. Again, other funds, we have some local funds that you can see listed there, so federal funds, and then also some state-provided funds as well. These are outside of the general fund. And that's kind of how they like to present it, the general fund being so large and then all of the other funds combined. So this summary statement that you'll see in front of you, again, gives us some actuals for the prior 2 years, our adjusted budget for this current year that we're just finishing, and then the proposed budget, so forth. And you can see our best estimates of beginning balances, local revenues, state revenues, federal revenues, and then the categories of expenditures down below. Okay, again, looking at these other funds, and so you can look at the difference there for the proposed budget and this last year's budget. Again, regarding the federal funds and state funds, you can see how those different other funds relate to one another. By far, the federal funds are the biggest other funds grouping that we have. Okay, and again with the next slide, again looking at the expenditures, a lot of our expenditures in these other funds, there are a few salaries and benefits that come out of these other funds, but a lot of them are, the majority is our capital objects, supplies, purchase services, and just a little bit for insurance to cover that, the liability we have in insurance there for these other funds. I think that's you. Yeah.
All right. I don't think this one's working.
Yeah, you will switch it.
All right. Then really what the bulk of our budget is based upon what is contained in the general fund. And this year, nearly 71% of the total expenditure, all the expenditure we're looking at, it's about 71% of the entire budget. And so that's the majority of our budget, of course. I'm not pressing hard enough. And of course, we have to publish in the paper our school budget summary. And this appeared in the paper on June the 10th. So all of our legal obligations for tonight's meeting have been met. And this along with the one that Jonathan showed prior to, in a prior slide, with the special funds or all other funds, constitute our budget. And we have to show the last 3 years, including the current year and next year's budget. And so we have actual for the first 2 years, just an adjusted budget because we haven't finished this year, and a budget we have proposed for next year. And as you can see on this particular sheet, when we look at revenues, the state revenue increase has provided the bulk of the increases for our general fund. And this year, if we had not been protected, and we'll get to talking about protection here in a few moments, the state revenues would have been even more. And so, but the state revenue is generating the bulk of the increases over the last 4 years. And this is just a comparison from this year to last year in the way of where the income comes from. When we talk about the state increasing their portion of the revenues, we have to remember that last year we did not do the entire supplemental levy that we were entitled to. And so that shift, then doing a little shift this year again with supplemental levy, kind of makes those numbers look like the state's not contributing more than they did, but in reality, when you compare the whole budget, the state revenue did go up. And if you look at how it compares with other funds, it's a very different fund makeup, where the source of funds come from. Of course, the general fund is state. The special funds are going to be more federal. And being federal, they're going to have more direction on what those funds could be used for. And so when we talk about special funds, most of those are going to be directed into special programs, special ed in particular. And another big one happens to be Title I, so they are directed programs. And that comes with federal money. And on the expense side for fiscal year '24 in general fund, as in most any other year, we can do this comparison. Salaries and benefits make up the majority of the expenses in the general fund. For this next year, we're anticipating it to be about 88% of the general fund. And so it leaves 12% for other objects, and the two biggest ones are purchase services and supplies. So we talk about purchase services. Generally, it's going to be computer services, utilities, and supplies. The big ones are going to be textbooks. And this again is just a comparison to the other funds with the general fund, and you can see that the breakdown is very different of where our expenses go in these two categories of funds.
Can you give an example of capital objects? That's tangible.
In capital objects, it runs the gamut from equipment,
Okay.
so computer equipment, to an addition to Pokey High. And so anything that we would spend on a capital object, whether it be building or reconstruction or remodeling equipment, it all falls into that category.
So it could be services then, or not just a physical thing.
In the
When you
school
say
plant,
remodeling,
if
is it
that
the-
is included, I don't know if we have purchase services in school plant or not, if it,
Typically not, at least in the 420 plant facility.
and so it would come out of a or remodeling account and all be considered part of that remodel.
Gotcha. Thank you.
And as we look at the general fund, we know that the last 2 years has been based upon average daily membership. And based on average daily membership, our units went up. For the foreseeable future, we don't know how this might change in the future, our funding is going to be based on average daily attendance. But even if we look at membership, this is our enrollment history. And you can see for a lot of years, we were right around 12,400 to 12,500 students. We took quite a dip in 2021 for COVID reasons. Started coming back 2 years ago. This year it came back even more. We have not reached where we were before COVID. We will kind of have to see how our numbers come in this fall. The big unknown, of course, is kindergarten. But you can see those that through this chart that we haven't done a lot of growth in this community or had a lot of growth, and we, by virtue of what we see in the future, we don't see a lot of growth either. And so this is just an indication we need to probably just kind of maintain our status quo in the way of what our funding and FTEs might look like.
So this may just be a random question. Where did those 1,500 kids go from 1994? I mean, that is such an amazing drop. I don't
That's
know.
a
You know?
that's a good question.
Schools?
Yeah, if we look to the next page, it actually has the numbers, so it's easier to break down. In 2020, there were 12,419 students. Then it dropped 500 kids to 11,910. So we're looking at 500 students. And they could have gone to online schools, they could have been homeschooled, they could have gone to another charter. I don't know if we have a great answer where all those kids went.
Yeah. I was actually looking at the 1994 where we were up at 14,000.
Well, back in that time period, you gotta realize that Bucyrus Erie was here in town.
Who?
Bucyrus Erie,
Oh,
FMC.
I remember that.
And when they,
I'm not the oldest person here. but I
Yeah.
remember
I
that.
may
But-
not have lived here then.
but BE, they were a huge employer here in town. They took entire
NOP plant, they take
Yeah.
that whole thing.
NOP plant down here.
They run that.
Well, you know what? 1998 was when the Idaho State Legislature passed Idaho Charter School law.
And so,
That's
when
probably-
BE left town, a lot of those employees left as well, and so that was kind of the beginning of where we are today.
Interesting.
Probably a mixture of employers and charter schools.
Charter school.
Mhm.
Probably
And it-
homeschooling a little bit as well.
But I can
2000 FMC closed.
That's true. That's true. So we've had some big employers that were around in the mid-nineties and even late eighties that have left town. But as far as projections in the future, the big unknown, of course, as you can see on here, is the kindergarten, and we will see how our kindergarten class comes around this coming fall. And our registration, our numbers have been a little on the low side. I'm gonna look at. So we will see. We'll see. Some folks just wait till the last minute, get their kids enrolled, and we deal with it. And so, with that being said, we've talked about our enrollment and our ADA, and I need to mention as we talk about ADA, even though we have the kids, our ADA has been lower than it has been in the past, the rate of attendance of our students. And so, we have to take that into consideration as well. And we're hoping that we can incentivize some of our students to come to school at a better rate and be here. And because now it's, as we heard the governor state just after he was here after the fire, he's a proponent of ADA, average daily attendance. So we will see how that might change. But it will affect how our funding comes in. And this year, based upon the change in from ADM to ADA, it was a decrease of 36 units, which is a sizable amount.
But I think we should rally and maybe come up with some proposed legislation to not hold extended learning opportunities against us when it comes to attendance. Because if the governor is encouraging and approving extended learning opportunities outside of school, then they should be considered
Counted.
in attendance.
So how does that work if you have a student that only takes 2 classes a day?
With release time, you mean? Has
It-
release
Yeah,
time or
that's,
part-time?
yeah, just taking 2, it works, takes 2 classes, then when I say it's a senior, taking 2 classes, and then they're working the rest of the day.
Or they might do online, or they might do
The,
homeschool.
from what I understand, we don't have fractional ADA. But what I do understand from our conversations with State Department of Ed and some of those meetings we've had, they are going to go back to the half or whole. So, is that what you understand, Jonathan?
But that
So-
student would be included for those 2 classes.
Well, a half meaning you have to be in class.
Have to be in class.
I know I'm gonna get
I thought it was
the number
three.
wrong,
That's okay.
but a certain number of hours per day, or minutes, actually I measure it in minutes. Sue, do you know?
2 high school classes or 3 middle school classes.
Okay.
Oh.
But we're not punished by the fact that they don't take other classes. We're only accountable for them being in school.
That is
for
correct,
that
but if they do not
percentage.
meet the 2 classes, then they don't get half a day. If they don't get at least the 2, then they don't get the whole. And so your question about if somebody comes in for just 2 classes a day, let's just say even more, if they come in just for 1 period a day, just for, so we might have a homeschooler just comes in for band or choir. And so we can accumulate those 5 periods over the time, or the day, or the week, and account them for a certain portion of a day. And so we have the ability to do that through the funding formula.
And
So-
we're not punished, though. I just want to make sure. We're not punished by the fact that they only have
The-
1
the-
class.
There, when you say punished, there's,
Well,
it's,
just
it's,
like they're
it's,
not-
it's,
We don't
it's
get-
positive. We don't get it. We only get whatever they
don't
are
take
in
away.
school.
You only get
Oh,
a
yeah,
portion.
we're not taking away, we're just not getting it.
Yeah.
in addition.
We're not getting more than half a period for that 2-period student. So it's not like we're being penalized for anything. It's a positive rather than a negative.
So I'm curious when you also say incentivize attendance.
But like,
What
I mean,
Yeah,
that's a
what-
loaded,
And it's
No.
gonna be, a job, because parents have become accustomed to say, if my kid has the sniffles, I'm gonna leave him home. And typically, we would say, yeah, leave that child home, but if they can come to school and learn, we would like them to be in class, because that's the best way for them to be gaining an education. So we've had some incentives in the past. It was done by school. Haven't, we've tried our best to get the teachers, the administration, to incentivize our kids to be there. And hasn't always worked. I'll have to be honest. But the rate of our attendance is lower now than it was before COVID. And so what was the difference between these two periods of time? And I think it's become the attitude in the home, and maybe an attitude within our own systems about, we do not want ill kids, whether they might have just a snotty nose for allergies or it's COVID, in the schools. So it kind of,
isn't our attendance over 90% still?
We are
Across,
right about 90.
okay.
I don't know if mine's on there, but nonetheless, and I think Mr. Smart's provided a
Thought it was
pretty good
like-
summary of
like
incentives.
90.
It's not individual student incentives, it's more of a school, how can we incentivize the school? It's the pep rallies, it's the, kind of that urgency, the importance of attending school. And really, that's done by our building level administrators and our teachers, our community resource workers. It's pretty much all inclusive of staff members, just rallying behind kids, parents, and just trying to be more involved. And to your point, Mrs. Judy, what you said exactly, I think is what is supposed to happen over the summer, is that the State Department, State Board, Governor's Office, and legislative delegates are going to be meeting. Again, this is my understanding. I spoke with, actually, through text and email, Greg Wilson, who is Chief of Staff for Superintendent Critchfield. And he anticipates that meeting will happen sometime over the summer. The governor actually confirmed that with me about a week and a half ago. And so I think that is underway to look at this fractionalized ADA, because nothing's been done with attendance for 20+ years. And so times have certainly changed in how we school, what our, the importance is of maybe those extended opportunities perhaps. The legislature has certainly put some importance with that. And consequently, I think they need to look at this, as does these other entities, governmental agencies, to come together and figure out a better way. Our attendance is approximately 90%, probably in middle schools, and maybe a little bit higher, 91, 92 in elementary schools, which is down about 5% from where it typically was prior to COVID. Again, as Mr. Spark pointed out, I think it's been a conditioned response that we've said, you need to stay home, right? Don't spread or have this unnecessary contact. I mean, even our schedules changed and everything. So it's going to take a little bit of time to recondition ourselves as to what is necessary to get an excellent education.
I do, as far as kids that are only enrolled in PV Tech, is it still the same? Can they just be enrolled in PV
Sure.
Tech, or do they have to be enrolled in a high school
That is nice.
through
So
PV Tech?
PV Tech is not a school in and of itself.
Mhm.
It's where classes are held, so
So they would
they
be
are
registered,
enrolled in Pocatello High School and go to PV Tech for classes, or they're enrolled in Highland
I
and
see,
go to PV Tech for classes.
I see, even if they're only at PV Tech.
But they're still
Okay.
either a Highland, Poc, or Century student.
That's what I thought, I wondered.
this may be a little even further off our discussion here, but one thing I always noticed when I would call to say, my kid's not doing well today, I mean, I could have been anybody calling. Do we ever, I mean, what is the policy to say, your kid's sick? I mean, my buddy next door could have called and said, I'm so-and-so's mom and I'm sick. I mean, do we have different, I mean, it always shocked me, because when I grew up, boy, you had to have signed doctor's note, and, I mean, it was, and we seem to be a little more lax.
Sue, can you come up and speak to the
I know this is so far off the budget discussion, but I'm thinking, if, do we need to adjust some of those policies?
Oh, the podium?
I mean, if it's
So
more
I can
difficult
tell-
to be out, maybe that
So
helps with
when
attendance.
the first part of the year, we don't know voices, they ask them to, for some identifying information, student's birthday, address. I mean, just 3 or 4 things that they can clarify and say, okay, this really is a person that knows.
who it
And then after a while, if it's a frequent flyer, you can recognize names. Or if they've been in, you can recognize voices. But more times than not, they ask them to verify who and how. So.
About the same.
We do ask them if they do have medical documentation to submit that so that we get that. But
That's the only way to get it.
we've had a little bit of pushback from providers around here in asking for that because they were getting overwhelmed in terms of providing that, and parents then calling them and saying we need an excuse for that. So it's a balancing act for sure. But we ask them.
Can't imagine
if they
any
do have-
third graders are getting their buddy to call in, but,
No, it doesn't happen very often at elementary, but maybe a little more at secondary. I don't know.
yeah.
Your buddy might sound like your mother instead of your dad.
Right.
So, in reality, Ms. Clark, what you're talking about really does drive our state funding formula. And so, off topic, you know, a little bit of a bird walk, but it really matters. It really
Yeah.
does matter. And so, when we talk about state funding, how those kids attend school really does matter, because our salary apportionment and what the money comes through the distribution factor are all based upon, now, beginning next year, when we know ADA. And so they're the 2 funding mechanisms in the state funding formula. Both are based on units, which is a result of average daily attendance over a period of time. We have 2 periods of time that we measure. The first reporting period, which ends the first Friday in November, which gives us our salary apportionment. The distribution factor, which the state likes to call discretionary money, is based on the best 28 weeks of attendance. And as always, we always kind of start high, end low. The semester breaks or trimester breaks, it kind of bumps up again, but take it to the bank. Our district has done high to the low. And so our best 28 weeks has been generally about 99% of our salary apportionment units. A unit can be likened to a classroom. General fund numbers this year are based upon 586 units for both salary distribution and distribution factor funding. These numbers are based on, like I said, average daily attendance. We are anticipated being protected this next year. Protection is 97% of your prior year's funding. But protection is also self-funded, and according to what we heard from the state, that self-funding is going to take up another 3%. So 97% of 97% equals about 36 fewer units for us for this next year than we had this for the current year. The distribution factor becomes operational funds from the state, which supports all areas of the budget, from salaries to benefits to purchase services, supplies. It really comes in 2 parts. Insurance, which is $21,800, which helps us buy into the state plan, and discretionary dollars of $19,500.
And that's per unit.
That's per unit. Thank you, Jonathan.
So that's why those units, more units we have, more.
I was wondering why that number was so low.
Yeah,
Well,
per unit.
that's not the number.
And if you look at the next page, it actually sums those 2 numbers together. This is a distribution factor history over the last 4 years. 2021, it was $28,887. As you can see there, the change from the prior year, just below that it says change of value, was pretty skimpy at $282,000. That's all that send us an additional money for our distribution factor. Over the last 3 years, they've had some fairly significant increases in the distribution factor, from 29,000 in 2022 to 41,000 this year. Last year and in 2022, there were actually bigger increases in that funding in that unit value. This year, you can see $1.9 million anticipated additional distribution factor funding. If we would have been able to maintain our units based upon ADM, which I'm gonna say is about 622, instead of $1.9 million, it would have been closer to $3.4 million in additional funding. And the same thing could go with salary apportionment as well, but that's just kind of a dramatic look of how those reduced number of units are going to affect our funding. Salary apportionment,
So are you hearing from other school districts? I mean, they're seeing similar. Where would you say, I mean,
we know that every district around the state is dealing with this change from ADA to ADM.
right?
Some of them are doing it very differently. We've heard that some of the schools in the Boise Valley are actually reducing the number of staff they have.
Really?
We are going to maintain our FTEs. And so we will utilize some of our local funds or some of the discretionary dollars that the state sets the distribution factor to maintain those FTEs. So even though the state is not supporting those FTEs as much as they were in the past. In fact, while we're talking about salary apportionment, we're going to break this into two parts. One for administration and classified, and the other for teacher salaries. As far as administrative base, it went up 5% this year, and the base salary is what they use to determine how much money they're going to send to the district for administrative salaries, meaning principals, anybody who's or anybody who else is in an administrative position. Classified base went up 56%. And we've had this conversation with you as a board before about how they were really, or districts were really struggling to fund their classified salary schedule with what was coming from the state. There was quite a number of dollars that were going in to maintain it from local funds. So the state tried to address that in this big increase in the base salary for classified staff. For administrative base salary, we multiply the $43,000 by an index, and what that index is they place all of our administrators on a grid based upon their years of experience and their education. And our experience index is just about 1.9, so they multiply this 43 by 1.9. So our average reimbursement for administrative salaries is close to $83,000 for this next year. Classified base salary equates to about $18.65 an hour, which is an increase, sizable increase from last year's $11.94. In fiscal year 2023, approximately 7.5% of our classified employees, their hours were paid for, and those hours that were paid from the general fund, were paid less than the state hourly reimbursement. 92.5% were paid more. So that's an indication that we were paying way more than what the state was reimbursing. For this new year, coming year, 63.8% of the classified employees' hours paid from the general fund will be paid less than the state hourly reimbursement, and 36.2% will be paid more. So you can see that's quite a change that we're able to do with our salary schedule. As far as base salaries for our certified staff, our teaching staff, this just shy of $60,000 for both our certified and our pupil service personnel, PSPs. The base salaries include the $6,359 that the legislature what they added to the career ladder to enhance that career ladder. Because the enhancement was not included in the career ladder printed in Idaho code, The state's minimum salary went up only $376 to $41,118. We are way above that minimum salary based on that $6,359, because ours is $47,500. What were you gonna say? All right, last little bit here, balancing the budget. Our current revenues, which excludes anything that's coming from this year into next year, so our balance forward from the current year, our current revenues is just a little over $101.5 million. The requested current expenditures, which also excludes any reserves we have sitting in there to just be our savings account, is $102.2 million. So there's a difference of about $667,000. We estimate that the beginning fund balance for next year will be about $16.25 million. So from this year, we'll take whatever our reserves were, whatever savings we had, whatever additional funds came in, so additional revenues, and moving into next year, it'll be about $16.25 million, leaving about $15.5 million to cover not only this shortage, if you will, from current expenditures to current revenues, but also fund all of our necessary reserves. So we're gonna say less 1% for contingency, less 4% for unappropriated fund balance, which are our policy, so we'll cover those. We have an inventory reserve we have to cover, about $300,000, and about $250,000 we have to transfer to other funds. So that leaves about 9.9, or just shy of $10 million in fiscal year 2024 for other reserves. Insurances, we are happy to report that the insurances for life insurance costs went up 0%. In fact, we got notice today that they gave us a 0% increase for the next 2 years, and so we won't see much of an increase in life insurance. The vision, dental, medical, and EAP through the state medical plan went up just shy of 10%, or $104.16 per employee per month. That's what PEM stands for. So total increase to the general fund is $1.292 million. When we compare it to the $1.9 million we anticipate getting from the state's discretionary dollars and insurance pieces, it more than covered what we needed to do to cover just the general fund, of course. The VEBA trust, we will not touch the VEBA trust to offset medical insurances.
So why would we not use that for that $1.3 million?
Well, you know,
That?
if we got a total increase from the state, let's say of $1 million, that would indicate that maybe we could use the VEBA to make up that difference. But because we have more revenue coming from the state than needed to cover it, let's leave the VEBA there.
Oh, that's a positive amount.
Yes.
I thought that was, okay, out of the general fund. Okay, I see.
Percy is again waiving retirement sick leave payments for the next 12 months, saving just about $773,000 from the general fund. Retirement sick leave has historically been about 1.25% of salary. ESSER is becoming less and less of an issue in balancing our budget. We've had the ESSER funds, the CARES, the CSSR, CRSSA, and ARPAs. They have never been, there never was an intent to use those funds as an offset for general fund dollars. And so whatever we had was in addition to what we could do with the general fund. We will nearly deplete the ESSER funds during the 23-24 school year. And in fact, all the funds must be obligated by September 2024, which is 3 months, or is it 2 months? July, August, September, 3 months after this next fiscal year ends. So the ESSER is finally slowly disappearing. Reserves, of course, we saw here the contingency reserve is 1% board policy. The unappropriated fund balance is a board policy. And we will have an appropriated fund balance to offset other additional federal and state reductions that might happen during the year. As in many years prior to this, our supplemental levy has been critical to balancing this year's budget. And lastly, because we need to officially certify these numbers with the county eventually, these are our levies that we are going to certify with the county for this year. $8.25 million in supplemental levy, the tort levy, which we are going to leave the same again as we did last year, and the school plant, which will go up 5% from the prior year, which is last year's $6.4 million to this year's 6.7. We know, or we anticipate the taxable property value will probably go down, which is odd. But based upon this new tax, this last year it went up quite a bit of percent, quite a large percentage. Just because of the slowdown in the housing market, I think if you looked at your own statements, many values went down. So we were anticipating it probably is going to be district-wide. I'm not going to take a census here, Mr. Vitale.
We got cheated. Right? We got cheated.
Oh, probably.
Oh, okay. But based on what we could see, it's kind of a generalization. It might even go down this year, so it might have a negative effect on the rate. As property values go up, the rate goes down. If it goes inverse to that, of course, the rate goes up a little bit. But our rate is much lower than it was in 2021.
And if I can add one, so the other thing that we don't know, again, available, it might even be in August, is that House Bill 292, where those are the what do we call those? The property tax replacement dollars, from the state, that will basically be a tax savings to our
So
patrons.
6 million?
Again, we don't know that amount. I've heard
Oh.
5, I've heard 3, and so obviously.
Oh, that's not the same thing as the 6 million.
I'm not sure if we're talking about the same thing or not.
Okay,
But
that's okay.
But
I
as soon
can ask
as soon as we
later.
find that amount, I think we'll definitely, share that with you, because that will definitely affect these levy rates and so forth.
Yeah, well, and that number will actually be part of the numbers we attach to our, is it L2 or L4? L2, our L2 form that we have to file with the county in September. And so I imagine it's going to work very, very similar to our current revenue in lieu of taxes that we already have to recognize when we do our filing with the county. And we just finished this exciting tome today, and it will be put on the website once it's been approved to go through the ADA process. We have to put everything in through the ADA process for a PDF document. Did not get that done today, but will be done before the next day or two are done. And so this will be posted on the website, so anybody who wants to review it can certainly pull it down and look at it. If you have insomnia, this will cure it in a hurry. So anyway, that is our hearing, our what we want to share with you. And so unless you have other comments or questions that we can answer tonight, we will continue on through our agenda then,
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Okay, now we'll recess this meeting and convene a public hearing to solicit input on the proposed revenue and expenditure budget for the 2023-2024 school year. Did we receive any requests? Okay, so we have no request for comment. Seems no request we will move on. We will now close the public hearing meeting, and I would entertain a motion to consider adopting the Pocatello Chubbuck School District 25 revenue and expenditure budgets for the 2023-2024 school year. Is there a motion?
I hereby move that the board adopt the Pocatello Chubbuck School District Number 25 revenue and expenditure budgets, certify the levies, and authorize appropriation for the 23-24 school year per the attached resolution, as if read into the minutes.
Is there a second?
Second motion.
Is there any discussion? Okay, is there all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? I see none. That motion passed.
Nice work.
We just need to make sure that you are aware, this is just a budget. Things are going to change during this next year.
You think?
I thought we were going to hold
As
you.
sure as the sun rises. And so next March, we will bring to you some adjustments to this budget to reflect what has transpired during the year.
Okay.
Okay?
And then
I
when
thought-
do we see actuals, the final actuals for this past school year?
You will have you'll have an audit when?
Well, the audit will start in July. We'll go July, August, September, so typically it's October, I believe.
So,
But I mean, we'll get a closer crystal ball, you know,
Right.
as the further we get through that, we're adjusting entries and so forth. But yeah,
I know they were looking at contracts payable today, actually. They were getting reports for that so they could start that process. So,
Thank you very much. Okay, we will now move on to curriculum and instruction, school safety and athletics. We will start with Janelle Harris. She'll present the policy and procedures of 8311.
Okay. Thank you, Board Chair, Board members, Superintendent Howell, Ms. Johnson. I'm just here to present the restraint and seclusion policy. We're pretty fortunate when the state passed the new law that our policy was already pretty much in line. There was just a few verbiage changes that we needed to add in there. So there's not huge changes to that. Do you have questions for me, though?
I don't, did you get any public comment on it?
This is first reading, right?
Oh, okay, that's true. Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Okay, next, AJ Watson will report on Head Start Active Supervision Improvement Plan Child Outcome Report and in the monthly program report. AJ.
Good evening, board members. A few items to discuss in regards to Head Start. Two of them are for action. The first one is the Head Start Improvement Plan and Timeline. You do have that in your packet. This goes back to the unsupervised child noncompliance that was back in October that had been reported. They've been working on correcting that noncompliance, put a plan in place that includes the investigation, professional development, and the different things that they, as far as tasks and other things that they put in place to address that issue. They will be having a meeting on Friday to review that with the Office of Head Start and making sure that they are in compliance. So that is up for your action today, just to approve that plan and timeline.
Did you get someone to attend?
I have not heard of anyone yet. You were the only one that I heard back from, but I don't know if everyone saw it because it was sent out this afternoon, Friday at 11 o'clock. Yes, if someone's available.
I have an appointment, so if anybody else can.
It is on Zoom, and I think they said under an hour. It should, maybe a little less, but if you're available, they would like a board member to attend. If not, they understood. The second item for action is the Head Start Child Outcomes Report. This is an annual report. As you remember, earlier in the year, they discuss what the different areas mean with the outcomes, and then they provide you with a snapshot at the end of the year in terms of growth and those that were able to meet or exceed those outcomes in the different areas in your report. It also includes, towards the end of that, the action plan from last year and also the action plan moving into next year to address those areas and identify strengths and weaknesses and a plan for next year moving forward. So as you look at action as well for this, it is to approve their plan for the 23-24 school years. They look to start and implement that as staff and learners return. And then the last item you had in your packet is the monitoring review report. That was the federal audit that took place, a week-long audit. They found 3 areas, 1 area of concern, 2 areas of noncompliance. They all revolved around the same thing, mental health concerns and support. The Lincoln Head Start program lost their mental health consultant about halfway through the year and have still been unable to hire one at this point. So there were some findings and other things that resulted from that. They're working on that and hope to find someone to fill that position, but they have yet to been able to find someone. So that information is included in there too, as far as the findings and those areas of concern.
With
Deanna?
that hire, everything should be in compliance, so if it's all related to that.
They've already taken some steps to address some of those concerns that were addressed in there, but that hire would help considerably to facilitate as far as behavior supports and other things that that person was able to do that they were unable to hire and fill that position for about half the year. That's all the information that I have in regards to Head Start. Any additional questions? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next, Sue Pettit and A.J. Watson will present policy 8106. District attendance and student transferee, first reading.
So, as you know, the legislature passed a new open enrollment, or added to their open enrollment legislation. And so we looked at our policy and needed to add a couple of things. In specific for policy, we needed to add the verbiage clearly on reasons that someone would not be able to transfer, or that transfer could be revoked. And so that's what's in green on that first page. And on the second page, where it says transportation to and from school or to the appropriate bus stop, that has been in legislation previously, but it was not in our policy. So we need to make sure that that got into our policy. So those are the changes for the policies. Part of the procedures, again, the bus stop, and then they requested in that legislation that the schools set enrollment caps for transfers. And so we had to put that into our policy. And some of those numbers had been adjusted specifically for staffing for the middle schools. The middle schools are large enough to hold more kids, but staffing wise, we don't staff it for that many kids. If February 1st is when open enrollment is, and if February 1st those numbers change, and we know that there's going to be a larger influx in one of those middle schools, we'll come to you and we'll be changing those numbers so that we can adjust staffing. And that may happen annually, but right now, these numbers have been very stable for quite some time, so. The other one we needed to add was New Horizons. It has never been a transfer request school. It's always been a placement school, but our attorney advised us that we needed to make sure that we included New Horizons in for our transfer policy. But part of that, to be considered for a transfer there, they absolutely have to meet the at-risk requirements for an alternate school before that transfer can even be considered. So, and then the other part that could limit the number of students we can transfer is program specific. So for our special ed classes, we've set limits on those for transfer so that we don't overload any of our special ed classes and leave space for students that live in that area or move into that area. And then we added just a couple, like I said, a couple words of staffing. And then we do need to publish the number of kids in the school and possibilities for transfers 4 times a year. And so we have that ready to go also. We are currently redoing the transfer form, and that should be up and ready to go here very shortly. And it will spell out all of this also. For secondary, it didn't change a whole lot because we've had transfers. And once they've transferred, they can stay at that school. For elementary, they had to put in a transfer each year. And the difference now is after the second year, they don't need to continue to put in a transfer. They can stay throughout their, throughout that school.
That's all yours. That's all right. I would have been better off just to let her do that. And that goes to that last page where you see the reapplication of transfer requests. It has that information on there in regards to, and after the first year, they only have to give notice of their desire to stay on transfer to the school. They don't actually have to fill out the form and reapply. And then after that second year, they're just considered part of that school.
I had a question about the student appeals.
Absolutely.
I see in there, this comes to the Board of Trustees.
Can.
How
Yes.
often, has that been, so this is new?
It's new.
Okay.
And it hasn't come before, and I would bet that you probably won't see one.
I don't say never.
That was that.
Not never, but rarely.
that was part of the legislation, that it goes
Was it?
to the Board of Trustees, so that's why we're told, we clarified that with
Okay.
the attorney and the lawyer. They said needs to be in there.
Gonna hold you to it. No, I'm kidding.
So we're asking for a first reading on that, on those changes.
What about athletic requirements?
Yeah.
Because it just says that will be subject to IHSAA requirements. But in those requirements, from what I can understand, it says as long as the district and board has determined that they are eligible, then they can participate. So before, our policy was we couldn't, if a child was to transfer, they were not eligible for a year.
You must have read our minds, and,
Okay.
because, Ms. Brooks has been working on this for a couple of weeks, and then she presented a draft to a few of us today, and we have reviewed that. So as a preview to the board for potential policy change next month, go ahead.
Yeah.
Which would
So-
go into this, right?
Well, IHSAA actually, like, put in more detail that a transfer will not be permitted unless you have, and they added things to the list, move more than 50 miles away, the whole entire family, turn off your power and water and show proof of that, turn on the power and water and show proof of that. So they've actually extended it. Now, where the board can approve and so forth is academic, but for eligibility for athletics, it has to go through the IHSAA board. Does that make sense? And they can apply for a hardship. A hardship might be, some kind of unique situation in the family or something like that to the,
So the
that-
thing that what I'm asking about though is that this is different because it was a change in law.
Mhm.
And before, a student could have been, maybe wanted to go to one school and was told no because of our policy.
Mhm.
But now our policy is different because of the law, because the laws changed. So now.
Mhm. So
um,
they could go academically, they can't transfer and still have eligibility to play.
Okay, so that, it's not talking about.
So IHSA did not change their rules, and we follow IHSA rules.
Okay, because I think it said unless there was, it just says they're providing all other eligibility requirements.
So I can get you the IHSA transfer rules, and basically if you,
Because I'm looking at attendance.
if you're moving more than 50 miles, and if you are, there's a divorce, you have to show the divorce paperwork, those types of things. If you just move less than 50 miles, then you have to apply for hardship.
That's a whole state.
Mhm.
Okay,
What they found is they had to tighten it up, if you will, Deanne, just because of the open enrollment. Most people felt like that included athletics, and he met with the superintendent, Deb Critchfield, and no, they actually tightened it because they can do it academically, but eligibility-wise for athletics, they have to have all of those.
What, they have to sit out a year?
Mhm.
Is that-
And they can apply for hardship, and they can play JV, and most often that is, approved. And sometimes it's approved for varsity level if it's a hardship that was not in their, it happened to them.
But a
So-
hardship couldn't be that they were denied based on the fact that the law changed? That's what I'm-
Denied?
Denied enrollment based on the fact that it wasn't state law last year, that they could go to another school. They were required to go to the school that.
Right, so right now, but if they're an 8th grader and they're going into 9th grade, then their eligibility hasn't started. So they do not have to sit. They do not have to sit.
People that are already in a high school. Is
Then
that
they're
correct?
transferred.
Always have to sit, and they still will have to
Okay.
unless.
Yes, so if I'm a freshman at one school and I want to move to another school, then I have to go through the hardship.
Okay, but
Mhm.
when they choose a high school to begin with, that they can.
Then their eligibility doesn't start until they start school there.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yep,
I'm
that-
hoping I'm answering that right.
makes sense.
It used to be different in our district,
Oh, yeah, we used to have,
and that changed 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
yes, and we strictly follow IHSA guidelines. So we had above and extended
policy be above and extended from IHSA.
Yeah.
And now we've gotten away from those because of our boundaries, and IHSA covers all of that, even with open enrollment. We've always had open enrollment if there's room, always.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hope that helped, because I know there was a lot of confusion over that,
Yeah.
and we were pretty shocked when it become even harder.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think they were trying to make a clear statement that didn't mean anybody could go anywhere and play.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does that help? I think I'm up next anyway.
Nope, unless you're doing camps?
Yeah.
Okay, you're up.
Good evening.
Go ahead.
So I'm gonna propose the camp requests. We have a couple girls basketball, soccer, and cheer and football camp coming up pretty quick. I think football actually starts tomorrow. So if you have any questions in regards to the camps in the next couple months here. Okay, then we'll go on to the next. We're on the second reading for student injuries, illness, and medication. We've talked a lot about adding the language there to add opioid antagonist. I did get some feedback on what that meant, and it's defined and outlined in the procedures, but opioid antagonist is basically Narcan. Narcan's a brand name, so we didn't want to put a brand name in there in the policy. Does anybody have any questions in regard? Okay. And then, final thing is the athletic directors are proposing that we change Iron Horse Stadium back to Highland High School Stadium. Iron Horse Stadium was originally developed as a district track facility. That's where it originated from. And with the recent upgrades at facilities and the need for a district track is no longer necessary, so we'd like to go back to Highland High School Stadium. And that just gives it more individuality and independence to the school. Does anybody have any questions? And that was actually a recommendation from the outdoor facility, so that was nice. Okay,
Okay, thank you.
thanks.
Okay, next topic on the agenda is business operations, which will be presented by Jonathan Balls. He will report on the following: Highland High School update, architecture and general contractor selection, and the PV Tech parking agreement with the INL.
Is this the one that works?
Yep, that's it. So
Do you want me to start or you start?
I think so, right? I think that's in
Okay.
the Highland update, we'll turn the time over to Ms. Fisher for, talk a little bit about her survey. Let's
Okay,
start with
so in your board packet, and I emailed you a preview of this and then had the final for the packet, for the addendum, is the public input survey results for future planning for Highland High School. So the goal of the public input survey was to collect documentation for the board's review and consideration to help guide further discussion and direction action. And that survey was designed with the following in mind. Initial board discussions from May's regular board meeting, Dr. Howe's editorial dated May 18th, 2023 that ran in the Journal. We wanted to get an initial pulse of community wants, and then from there, that initial pulse regarding what threshold the community will support financially. We wanted to present an entire range of options for public consideration. Those options were presented with the bond levy equalization percentages. Those were included in all of those numbers. The confidentiality for respondents was really important as we created this survey. We wanted to prioritize transparency for this decision-making process. It's really important that we bring the community along with us throughout this entire process. We wanted to create a survey that would reflect impartiality of results, impartiality of the questions, and then the neutrality of those responses. That's really important, so that we don't reflect any organizational bias through that questioning process. It needed to be representative of the community, so we did 4 different surveys. It was the same exact survey, but we distributed it through 4 distinct channels. And that was Infinite Campus and District Email was the first one. The second one was Facebook. And then the third one was Idaho State Journal. We did a series of email blasts to registered voters. And then we also put a pop-up on our website so that anybody that came to our website over that 3-week period would see that invitation to provide that public input there.
So the only way the registered voters got it was through the Idaho State Journal, if they subscribe to the Idaho State?
They would have gotten it through, not if they subscribe. The Idaho State Journal submits an email to registered voters,
Okay.
living in the,
I wonder,
living in the boundaries of District 25.
yeah, I don't think everybody got that.
I didn't either.
Well, it's one way. I mean, the registered voters could have gotten it through our Facebook. They could have gotten it
Right, I'm
through,
just saying that
they could have gotten it through.
Well, it was too bad, because I talked to a lot of people that had never, didn't know about it.
So did I. So I
Right.
just wondered how that happened, because I haven't heard of any people that got it that weren't a part of the district.
Right. Okay. We wanted to take a fiscally responsible approach to collecting that public input. We looked at a series of other options and decided this was a really cost-effective approach to get that first series, for that first phase of public input. There's a sense of urgency with getting and collecting this information, and so we wanted to keep that in mind to get those timely responses, so that we can continue to make steps, or you can continue to make steps moving forward. And then this survey could potentially help define further public input collection. So in total, we garnered almost 3,000 responses, which is far and above any survey that we've ever conducted. So I am pretty pleased with those responses. Those survey results are included in your packet, and then again, a follow-up survey, or potentially really structured community forums to collect further public input could be designed based on your feedback and input. So we wanted to give you the survey results tonight for you to peruse. There's a lot of information here to digest. Also included in your packet are the specific comments that people wrote, what else do you want the board and district administration to know as we move forward. So that document is about 50 pages long. If you want to pull that up, I can tell you how that's structured. It is structured by distribution channel, so that you'll note that there's a headline. So the Infinite Campus and district email comments are the first portion, and those numbers are lined. So when you get back together in a future meeting to discuss this, and when we wanted to give you the opportunity to digest this information kind of independently, then regroup. I know that there will be a series of other meetings where you'll discuss this, but we numbered this by line and page number so that you could easily refer to those as you meet. So you'll see Infinite Campus, district email, and then it's just numbered by category through those distribution channels.
What number on the agenda is it?
12A.
On the agenda,
Okay.
it is
Okay,
item number 12.
okay.
Yeah, 50 pages.
12A.
I'm impressed.
I didn't
Yeah.
see
Have a
that
response.
input before.
It was just compiled before
But
the meeting,
that's
so,
just those that made comment.
Yeah.
yeah. And not everybody commented.
Right.
So some people just submitted the information. So you'll see in the results, there's a compilation of results, and there's a legend for you to be able to follow what results came from which channel. On both of those questions. And then that demographic information is on the 4th page of that presentation. And then just thoughts for consideration moving forward. That timeline for a potential bond would be for November of 2023. The bond language would be due on September 18th, 2023, with that election date on November 7th, 2023. And then if we were to wait for May of 2024, that bond election language would be due on March 25th, with that election on May 14th. And then Jonathan's going to just touch on the stabilization information.
Sure. And we can provide, I can provide this, again, thanks to Piper Sandler for kind of putting a history of our bond levy equalization for our Pocatello Chubbuck School District. going back to '05 to, '23. Again, ranging from anywhere from even, the lowest was actually 14.76%, and the high was 29.28%. Over to that, from '05 to '23, the average was 21.68%.
So what is it currently?
So it currently, 2023, it's 27.28%.
Okay.
So, and again, just as a, well, I actually learned this myself as well. That factor, 50% comes from the market value per support unit, 25% comes from unemployment rate in the county, and 25% comes from the per capita income of the county. And that's kind of comparative to other districts. And so it's kind of a moving average. I've never been able to pinpoint that. You can kind of, with the benefit of history and looking backwards, you can kind of see how things would go down as the economy went down, as our market value went down, unemployment went down, or income went up, and so forth, like that. But anyway, that's just kind of a little history, and obviously, if we have future discussions regarding bonds, that'll come into play. And we'll share more information on that.
Could you just, bond equalization 101?
You
What does
bet.
that really mean?
You bet. So
Use your budget 101.
Yeah, there you go.
It's
So again, this started in 2002 by the legislature trying to help with some of these school plant facilities. There's basically three levels, if you were. If the level is 1.5 or higher, and again, so our level is actually the inverse of the percentage I just said from 1. So our index factor was 0.72, 0.72. And so let me start that way. So if it's below 1%, whatever that inverse is, that's what they'll pay you, principal and interest. So for example, if it's a $2 million bond payment and our index factor is 0.75, that means they'll pay 25% of the.
So that means that the taxpayers are not responsible for almost 30% of the cost of that building.
Sure. And
It doesn't affect property taxes. It comes from the state.
Okay.
Am I correct?
that is correct. It comes up in a payment in August, which typically bond payments will be due in 1st of September and then March. So if it's between 1 and 1.5%, and that's where my previous district was in that section, we just got 10%. So it's a minimum of 10% of interest. So it doesn't even touch the principal at all. So it was, it's just 10% of interest. If you're 1.5% or greater, so that means your market value is really high. I'd assume your unemployment would be low, your per capita income is high. If you're 1.5, 1.5 or greater, you actually don't get any subsidy. You can afford it. And I don't know how many are like that, but we can probably, Sun Valley, maybe those, that fits there. So does that kind of make sense?
It does.
A little bit. It's an annual payment.
But just that we're at over 28.
Correct, 27, but just for comparison, last year, we were at 22.61%. Because I think our big jump in market value helped increase that to 27%. So if and when we look at a bond, we'll try to be conservative, right? Because sometimes we'll want to get a conservative value for that, so we don't overpromise the taxpayers, oh, the state's going to pay this big amount, and for some reason it comes in a little lower. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Jonathan, I have a question about the insurance, this rebuild of Highland High School.
Yes.
As far as I know, like, if I have homeowner's insurance, they come in and do an evaluation on my home and say, okay, your home's worth this much.
Correct.
And then 5 years down the road, say my house burns down, my insurance will only pay me what they said my
Right.
house was worth 5 years ago.
That is correct.
Is that the same with the insurance on Highland High School?
So, yes and no. It is yes that there is some rumors that we're undervalued insurance-wise, and that is not true, because every spring we readjust our values. And we'll increase that 3 to 4%, just as you heard from our general contractor friends, that's about the price, the increase of materials and so forth. And so we basically, and I did this in my previous district, we always will increase the values of the building
So
and
every
the
year the school
contents.
district's upping their insurance on each school?
That is correct, starting, and
building?
again, it's by school year, so July 1st, we have values that we set in February that will go into place.
So, but my understanding when we had our insurance discussion is that the insurance would cover full replacement cost with current replacement costs, not previous replacement costs, and up to current codes.
That is correct.
Also be covered.
That is
So
correct.
it's covered.
That is
All of
100%.
it
We
is
are,
covered.
yeah, correct. We are definitely covered. We're still in that evaluation stage, but I've, double checked our limits, and since it was just a portion of the high school, and even with contents, even though it's a portion of the high school, we actually will be able to look at the entire contents of the high school that we put for the values for last year. And that's needed because a lot of the contents were affected by smoke and
All
and so forth.
uniforms will be replaced.
All the
equipment
uniforms,
will be
correct,
replaced
correct.
At
With-
replacement costs current.
Correct, the
Not
current,
what they
the
were
current
valued
cost.
at
That is correct.
previously.
That's correct.
That's what also was a misunderstanding in the community.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification, of course. Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Also, can I ask another question, insurance related?
Sure.
You were gonna find out if the insurance would allow us to use the insurance money on a new building,
A new location, I
a
think
new
is?
location.
Yes, and Dr. Hall and I, we asked that question and actually came back, yes. That is, we
Okay.
can use that.
That's
at
a really
different-
important
Well,
thing
question.
in this whole discussion.
So just to reiterate, the insurance money that we would get to rebuild what burnt down, we could use that to help build a new high school.
That is correct.
It's kind of an important factor.
Again, I would clarify also just, that some of that money would still have to
We
be.
still have to,
Yeah, we
Right,
still have
still have
to,
to have a cafeteria.
Right.
I was gonna say that.
Right,
Still have to,
but
have some
not-
other
but
places.
not all of it.
Not
We didn't
that
need
much.
to.
But no,
Depending on what we use it for.
that's correct.
And repurposing current structure, repurposing, cafeteria and all these things, doesn't necessarily mean that we have to
Or the
build a new
auditorium.
cafeteria.
We just need to have a functioning kitchen and,
yeah.
Right, right,
yep.
right,
However that
right,
looks.
right. But there's lots of creativity.
We can be creative. yes.
okay,
It's called a brown bag.
Bring your own.
That's right.
So other information for your consideration is some of the levy election results history from the past, I believe, 8 years, 9 years. That just gives you kind of a picture of how many registered voters, what percentage of voters actually voted in that. And it varies between when the school district is the only ballot question to when it's on a more general election. But it gives you that history, and that is just for your information. And then as we began to talk about soliciting public input, I always imagined that this would be a multi-phased process as the board continues to provide direction and refine any steps moving forward. So with that further direction, just to reiterate that there is the potential to refine questions. This is going to take a robust communication plan and strategy to educate our public. We haven't had a bond for 25 years.
and that was
So,
Century.
for the public to understand the full scope of complexities and opportunities here, it's going to take ongoing communications and opportunities to collect further input as we move further in this discussion.
So I wanted to say something I told Doug before, and that is that if one of my kids came up to me and said, "Can I have $100?" I'd say no. But if they said, I have saved $100, and I need another $100 for glasses. Will you help me? I would say, yes. So the thing that bothers me about this survey is number one, we were told, don't talk to the public or don't say things until we have all the information, like meeting with the construction, knowing how much the bond will be, knowing if insurance will be able to pay toward this new building, all of these things. Knowing if we could sell buildings to get kids out of older structures into better places as a result of this new building. In other words, this made it look like we want $125 million for Highland High School. And I would think that is very unappealing to everyone, including me. I feel like we need to look at the whole district. How does this affect everybody? Are we really gonna just have something that just affects one group of students? I think it's very, very important that if the question is framed in a way, this is for Highland High School students, that is very different than, if we do this, we'll have bond equalization, that's 30% less. We'll have the structure, we'll have $125 million structure for 30% less, at less than, you don't have to pay 30% out of your property taxes, so that number is wrong. That isn't how much it will cost the taxpayer money.
Actually, don't.
Also, insurance. Okay, go ahead.
No.
I have a lot to say.
No.
You're good, you're good.
Okay.
It's just the amounts in the survey did include that 30%, or that it was 27.28% less.
So the 125 million is 27% less than what it will cost?
Correct.
To build a high
And again,
school?
it's just it's not it's the bond repayment, the principal and interest of the bond you get,
Because
your
those aren't the
example,
numbers that we
30%.
got from the construction company and the designers, according to building a new high school.
Okay.
And maybe we needed to wait for that, because to estimate that it's gonna be 125 million plus 30%, I think is way too high. And, I mean, maybe it's not. Maybe we just needed to wait. But the biggest problem I have is that we didn't have any input in this survey at all. So it was pushed out to the public and very
So I'm gonna
much-
stop you for a second. I did.
Yeah, we did.
I
Yeah,
got
we
a
did.
chance to read it, and I
I did too.
provided some feedback.
So, okay, all right, let's
So
go
you
for the
may-
timeline. Let's go for the timeline.
So,
It came out as an email, and it went out the next day as a survey. So there you go. So anybody who had a chance to respond, which
yeah, and
would be you.
I guess
only
what
you.
I did not see this survey as being real specific. I saw
get
it
it, but
as,
I'm not done.
let's get a pulse.
I get
Let's
it.
see, because I think the amount of work that it's gonna take to hone in on any one of these, I mean, I didn't see the point in, these guys have full-time jobs anyway, and I understand this is gonna be a huge, but whichever path we decide, that's where I want them to put the real effort in, to really fine tuning
And
the
I want a
questions.
clear picture as to what path.
But, and I think that's coming. I do believe that's coming. This, to me, felt like, there's now a buzz in the community. There are people, if they didn't have a chance to do this survey, there will be more opportunities for public
Okay.
I don't think this
get
survey
it,
was
but I would like
meant to
to
be.
finish.
I'm just saying, that, don't say that we didn't have input, because we did.
We didn't.
I did.
We did.
And
We
We did.
didn't.
Who's we? You talking about the board?
You mean sitting as a board, coming up with the survey?
The
I don't
survey
think that was
wasn't, we
mine.
didn't have an opportunity to discuss the survey before the survey was pushed out.
I guess, again,
We didn't have a
my
meeting.
interpretation of the purpose of the survey was a kind of a general overview
Yeah,
pulse.
that's what.
I get it.
Let's see if
and
it's
I'm-
even worth really
Right.
drilling in. And if
Yeah.
there's an overwhelming, quite frankly, I kind of think we're a little bit all over the board with the survey. There are some that you can kind of clearly see
pretty
people
close.
want
Right,
it, but they don't want to pay
I
for it.
get that you agree
Which
with the
now
survey, but I
means-
am not
But
finished
now
saying
we
why I
need to
disagree.
do the fine tuning that you're asking for.
Right, but I haven't finished with saying why I
Okay, please
disagree.
do. Please do.
Okay, so, for one thing, the number needs to be right, so that requires a lot of research. And we didn't have a chance to research it, because we said, let's wait. We hadn't met with the construction team, we hadn't met with the designers, we didn't have an estimate, which we have a little bit better now. Also, I had suggested that there was somebody that had land that they might be willing to part with. And I did make a phone call to him after I talked to Doug, and he said he would consider bringing it to his partners for a donation. That wasn't included, because we didn't know about it yet. That's the key, we didn't know about it
Would
yet.
your friend really want that, the entire public, that one
Right,
board
that's-
member? Sorry, I just.
No, I'm just saying
That
that
information,
the
I don't think
number
you'd
that
want
the number that we put out for the public to say, would you be willing to pay this much money to the district? That might not be the number, because if we show that, hey, we're willing to go out, try to find donations, we're willing to sell this property, we're willing to land swap, we are willing to use insurance money. So we will have a structure that's worth 125 million, but we will only pay 70 million for it. Not only will we only pay 70 million for it, it will affect all the way down to kindergarten, because there are some old structures that we're trying to get the kids out of, and they are costing the district a lot of money according to maintenance to upkeep.
I don't
And it's
think you could
kind
have
of-
put all that
so,
detail in this.
This is all education. And so, anyway, so that, and then also the other thing we learned in the interview process with the designers, which I think is really important, when somebody's saying, oh, should we build a new high school? Highland sits on 32 acres, and then the estimate from the designers that came was that a high school this size, if you're gonna build it or dump a lot of money into it, needs 60 acres. So then, also the landlocked and the parking, the designers also said that's a problem. And especially if we were to rebuild, we'd have additional classroom learning spaces, that's a problem. So, also the other thing that we had talked about that wasn't a part of the education of the public before this survey went out is that I had suggested, and I don't know if anybody else agrees with me, but I had suggested that instead of saying, oh, this is a new high school for Highland, it isn't. It would be a high school that all the structures, all the ancillary structures would be shared. An auditorium would be shared. And all of these things would be shared so that the entire district would benefit from this and not just Highland. I also suggested that we team up with municipalities in our city. They're well on their way to wanting to build a swimming pool. And if we do it in a bond, we get 30% back from the state. If we do it as levies, and if we do it, through taxpayers, we pay 100% of it. So to me, it makes a whole lot of sense to say, what does our community need? Let's do some research. What does our community want and need? Maybe we don't need a football stadium. All the high schools have their own football stadiums already. Maybe all we need is a practice field with the potential for a football stadium in the future. Of course, we would want the land, but do we necessarily need the whole football stadium? Anyway, I'm just saying that with the way you frame it will give you a different outcome. So this survey, I completely disagree with the fact that it went out. I think it skews all of our discussions because like Heather just said, oh, the survey says, but the survey wasn't framed in the way that it could have been framed. So the question wasn't the same as, can I have $100? Well, I've saved $100, can I have help with the other?
So that survey's already gone out. So going forward, we're going to do another survey, correct?
Well, like I said, I always imagined that this would be a multi-phase process, and the survey was developed collaboratively based on feedback from the board at the May 18th meeting. Dr. Howell's editorial, where he sort of laid out some complexities and options, and then administratively as our team, and then sent to the board for feedback. There is a sense of urgency in getting this information out so that we can begin to define what our next steps are going to be, and there's opportunity to further refine those questions based on some of the details and information that Ms. Judy's providing tonight to further clarify what the community wants. This was solely to get an initial pulse on what the community wants, which is different than what the community will financially support.
Okay, so we can make the next survey more,
Fine tune it.
yes,
And in
more
fact,
fine tuned.
What I would suggest, and as Ms. Clark pointed out, I mean, these results to me are a little bit all over the place. I think
Right.
it's a good springboard for a deeper
Out of
dive
misunderstanding.
into discussions with the board, you know, as early as next week. I would suggest Monday or Tuesday. We come in, we roll up our sleeves, and really talk about what that data means, what the comments mean,
Right.
and how that reflects where we go from here. I
Well,
think
yeah.
there are some, sorry, go ahead.
No, you're fine, go
I
ahead.
think there are some opportunities to look at some of these additional items. I think it's important to clarify with our community that, yes, House Bill 292 would provide some savings in regard to our levies. But ultimately, you know, that could be a 2-year program, that could be a 3-year program. We don't know the longevity of that because it's just for now, and like next legislative session, you know, certainly things change, as we all are well aware. But we can take all those things into consideration. Tonight, in the next item, Mr. Balls will be asking you about your preference for construction manager and architect. And I think they could be part of this discussion as well, or the board could just take it on, no.
I mean, I guess I would defer. Yeah, it's, I'm not an expert here.
I think, because time may be a bit of, as Ms. Fisher reported there, with September 18th, the language being due, and summer, it's, we're maybe not as effective as communicating because people, I won't say the district or the board, and Mr. Judy, that reminds me, I don't know, when you started your comments, you said you were asked not to say anything. I'm gonna have to disagree with that, because I don't know that any of us said, don't say anything. We just said,
No, I can
let's
read
look at
your,
some options. as we
no,
move
I can
forward."
read your letter. It just said, can we do some research before we present?
Right.
And I do
think this is
agree with
all
that.
Part of that.
Right, I agree with that.
Yeah.
So that's why I
Yeah.
was just, I had, there
So
was
what
much
is,
to
it, you know,
say.
when we look at these results, is it strongly support, but it's somewhat support? If I put those two together, does that outweigh the not support? And so I think that, again, that's where we need to visit, and certainly those will be open meetings and people can attend. But we'll have to process all of this with every one of your ideas. And think it's
I had
important to do
a
that.
question for Courtney, though. I mean, I'm almost thinking a survey is not gonna be, I mean, it's gonna be community meetings. I mean, kind of like you did when we went around for the levy. I mean, there's gonna have to
That's
be
what-
education that allows people to come in. and-
Absolutely. And
And
this,
I mean-
this was just
And
to
I
get
guess
that.
that's why I think the survey, you're right, you could have built this monster survey, but I don't know that we
No,
would have
I
gotten
don't think we
people
should have.
to have understood everything, all the nuances that you're wanting to put in there. I don't think anyone would have read it, or, this to me was, let's, you know, for lack of a better, let's throw the spaghetti on the wall and see what sticks, see what draws, and so people who were very passionate about one of the opinions, I don't think the number, I mean, it was a ballpark, and maybe on the high end, but this was just getting the conversation out there in the community.
I think it did
And I
that.
think that's
It
what's
did
going
that.
to
It did do
draw
that.
people into some community meetings. They're not gonna read as much of the detail, and I appreciate your
So I agree
nuanced response to the one.
with the community meetings. However, I do feel like there's an urgency, like,
Yeah.
we need to make a decision, like, as a board.
Monday or Tuesday.
And then tell the community, okay, this is what, we have option A and option B. That's it. So you can come in and tell us, but this is gonna take 2 to 3 years. You know, whatever direction, it's going to take years. And so we gotta get it done now, and I think people are kind of like, what they wanna know what's going on. So I think we need to make a decision and then go from there, right? And not,
But maybe one of the messages in that same vein is that, to put it out there, I mean, we had a lot of the architects and the construction guys indicate that that all can still happen, and in-person classes can still happen. And I think maybe that's a
Right.
message that needs to, this does not mean we're gonna go virtual or that kids are gonna get sent to
No, they're
Century
still gonna
again.
go to,
I mean, if we can, even throughout this process, is it gonna be fun? Parking? No. But it's not gonna disrupt, I mean, I think that's a message we could get out maybe sooner than later, regardless of what
Yeah.
direction we go.
That's the question I get asked all the time
Right.
is, are
There's-
we
there's-
going to
and you can
in-person
see that in
classes
the
next
comments.
year? And that is a question that I think is easy for us to say. We could put it in the journal.
I think we have put that
Highland
in.
Have
will
him.
be in full
I thought it was there.
attendance in, in in-person classes in the fall. That's an easy question. And even if we do any of these three options, that will not change. They will have in-person instruction. We will not have any pause in that. I think that's important to say.
Absolutely. And there's certainly a lot more communication and education, especially if we end up going for a bond, to help the community understand what all those nuances are. And that initial survey was not the place to do that. This just opens the door to further those discussions and deepen those conversations.
And one thing that I got from the survey was kind of immediate disgust. Like, why are you saying this? It just, there's no
I didn't get that.
community education yet. And when I first read the survey, I thought, I would vote no on all three of those. As a board member, what I
But I
know,
don't
I
think they
do
did.
think building
Did
an
you read the
instructor is
comments yet?
important.
Have you gone through that comment?
I did not see that link, no, but
Then that's
I
what
know
I'm
how
saying.
I feel.
Then
is
I
that-
would say, don't say that it was discussed, because some of those comments. there was
No,
a
I'm
lot of
saying what
support.
I have gotten.
Right. Okay, so that's you. That's
No,
not the
as
community.
far as the way that the survey was done. And it was hard for me because I thought, well, this isn't framed in any kind of a way that I would want it to be framed, because it just is so impalatable. It seems to me like if it looks a different way, then I would vote a different way, so.
And again, if I could give maybe just a bond 101, again, use the board, you look at the needs of the district and get the sense of the community, right? And however you do that, survey is just one of many different ways.
Yeah.
And then a big milestone is that language. We have to give it to the county. And then, okay, so do meetings happen before that time to gather the pulse? Or, okay, this is what we're gonna do, and we put it to the county, and then we're everything that you said in education, why, this is the why that we want you to say, yes.
How
we want it.
complicated is that language? Is it just a
So
matter
we
of
will
saying,
have-
we need this much?
It
or do you
is,
have to
we
get real
will have,
specific?
it is a little bit complicated, so we will have bond counsel. There's one firm out of Boise that we've even talked to our council that said, yep, they're the best. And
Well, I
that's,
don't know that they said they're the.
oh, forgive me, they are used most frequently.
We didn't, no names named.
And it is they have a local branch here, and so we can share that with you, and obviously you would approve that.
Sure.
So
I
yes,
just- I
they
guess
would,
my
they would
question is
draft.
just how specific, do you have to say exactly what the building and where?
So some of the key things that you would discuss is the amount, but you would also do the length of the bond. For example, our neighboring district, they said 20 is too long and 15 is too short, so they always go 17. If you look in there, they always go 17 years. And then we get the rates and we try to do our best, okay. Yeah, try to get that tax impact, that'll all be part of in the
do you
ballot
have to
language.
put in
That
there,
has to go on every single
Yeah,
communication
there's new rules. on
as
that.
a whole. So you can't, you can put it in super fine print, but it has to go on every communication.
do you have to put in there, like, how it will affect the whole district? Like, if we did a new build, how Highland will be repurposed, and then how,
So not in the ballot language, not when you check the box, that would be part of the education. Between September 18th and November 7th, that's when, us and the district, the board would, we'd get that communication out there.
Right, like we do prior to the levy,
Correct, yeah,
public education.
yeah, public education.
Okay.
I will mention, we also will have a financial advisor, because again, bonds are somewhat complicated, we'll have that person as well. If that's the direction you choose.
So we would,
Okay.
after our discussions, we'll have, secondary, third, fourth, whatever it takes to get down that road far enough. I don't, does this even work?
I don't think so.
Okay, all right, I'll just do it.
Just talk loud.
So, and as Jonathan mentioned too, so we will come to the board with a recommendation for the bond counsel. Bond counsel is essentially an attorney who deals with all the legalese part of this, as well as a financial advisor who can get us through all the details of certainly that financial picture. With our other levies, we have to put how much of an impact that has for our taxpayers, so I think there would be an estimate that would go with that in the language. So we're going to, that's where sometimes schools, when they make a projection or a prediction about the square footage, and then we ask for this much money, that's all the money you get, and then you end up, cutting back on an auditorium or
Or a
the number of
gymnasium.
classrooms, or, yeah. And so we want to make sure that our numbers are going to, withstand future increases of that 4 or 5% year over year. So we need to be aware of that. That's what our financial advisor will help the board and administration understand. Yep. So I would love to know, Ms. Johnson, we'll get your availability for Monday and or Tuesday, because again, we probably need to get this moving along so we can be ready and not have to put it off maybe an additional year. And then we'll truly know by November, if we get this on the ballot for November, then where we go from there. And whether we're bidding right away or, selecting the, moving with that, or we have to go back to the drawing board a little bit and look at March levy.
Can you put two different bonds?
There
Do
is,
the new build and a,
and there is options, up there in a neighboring district did that as well. Gymnasium, or a school, and then I think it was either auditorium or a gymnasium.
right?
And
So
again,
you can
both,
choose between the two.
correct. Again, that's our bond counsel would help us craft that language
Or
to
we
that-
make
I
could,
just
sure
or
it's
we
don't
could
know.
say a bond with just the school and minimal facilities, or a bond with a full.
Again, the language will be so critical, that's how we can spend the money. So if we don't put, anyway, they'll help us craft that.
But that was just my question, is whether you can have
You-
options.
There is, I've seen it once in my,
So has that Highland, has that been put on their online, on their website, that they'll be going back to classes?
Yes, with the what to expect email. And there's certainly more communication that we can do after tonight's meeting
on the
with, I think
homepage or
some,
something.
I think some decisions have been made about ancillary buildings for other classes. So when we can share that, we'll get that information.
and I could provide that if you'd like on an update. A lot of you have heard this, update of where we're gonna put these programs that, did get affected by the fire.
Yeah, I'd kind of like a little rundown, if you don't mind.
Sure. If
If
that's-
that's
Is
okay.
that okay?
Yep, I think that's part of our update.
It is, yep, that was the next phase if you're.
Are you done with me?
Are you done?
Unless
Am I
you want me to
done?
stay or-
Can I get off the hot seat?
good there. So again, yes, the overarching theme is yes, we are progressing towards in-person classes. We've cleared a lot of hurdles there. We're still looking at, capping that water, but again, it's been abated where we need to cut, trying to get down to that line we anticipate should be done. The cleaning, we're hoping that should even be done this month or right after July 4th. So that is some great news there. We are, again, looking at trying to get a new wood floor into the lower gym, so that can be used. That one's not, it is crucial to coming back, but not critical that the students would stay out of the building, if that wasn't done. But again, we're anticipating doing that. Probably the biggest thing that's happening right now is that we're still under the insurance investigation. And it was wait, and now we're full steam this week. Several individuals on site. Again, we do not have access to that total loss area yet. And so we're kind of anxious to see how that's going. We've been answering a lot of questions. as they're diving back to even that first morning of kind of what happened and so forth like that. So we're hopeful that should be done this week, or their area of investigation should narrow significantly so we can see what we have. We have in the wings, we have at least one quote for demo, and probably our general contractor, construction manager, might help, in that. But that would be another goal, to try to get that down in July, so that safety hazard will, be removed, for the start of school there. Again, we'll also come with you. It'll probably be a special meeting. We'll get those as soon as we can, probably into July, some contracts. For example, with ISU and the welding program. We'll have contracts for there's a church house on Princeton that will lease for 2 to 3 years.
Do you know what programs? I know you said cheerleading. Is there anything?
Yes, so, yeah, and this, I appreciate Sue for helping. And again, we've met with the Highland administration several times, even as latest as yesterday, to give them updates. So ISU will hold some welding, possibly some music concerts. The Gateway, per the boards, since it's there close, will be used as a weight room. We'll have some PEs, kind of some yoga classes in there. And thank you.
In the basement, right?
In the basement, correct. That will also be kind of maybe a pseudo locker room in upstairs, and then it will also be the cafeteria, where they will store some food and then bus. Oh yeah, that's more there to there. Yes, and then some trainers, the physical. Yeah, there you go.
And you mentioned choir last meeting, but is that not going to be there?
No,
Okay,
so let me keep running down our list. I'll skip. Well, so the displacement of Gateway, there's actually an outbuilding at Hawthorne Middle School that's almost like a fourplex that will house our instructional coaches. And inside the building, there's a spare classroom for our English language teachers. So that space over at Hawthorne will actually probably be the Hawthorne Training Center and so forth. Please, yeah, or go ahead. Oh, thank you. Okay. There, at the Princeton building is what we'll call it, will be cheer, wrestling.
And a lot of storage.
And a lot of storage.
Oh, nice.
So that'll be, because
I'm
again,
glad to hear we found a wrestling place.
yes.
I know you were looking for
Yeah,
it.
and that's a
That's
great gymnasium, wrestling. And again, the storage will have access, even though we're leasing, that we do have permission tentative to change some locks. And so, again, because down in the gym, what burned up was a lot of storage. And so they'll need places there. Over at Calvary Chapel, just there on Olympus down there, would house band, choir, and dance. Again, these are all tentative, so, but again, we've been public with them doing that, so nothing's signed yet, but we'll be there. And then for the MEC, will help us with volleyball and some basketball courts. And then that lower gym, obviously, at Highland will help those practice times immensely. Also included, again, we shout out to our other town high schools, because the competitions will happen at Pocatello and Century. I think
Most of them will be
Pocatello.
for basketball games.
But I know like orchestra concerts will be at Century. And so the other high schools are really helping out as well. So that's kind of an overview of.
You talked about, didn't you say in front of the library, you're gonna when will those lockers come out, and that'll be like the cafeteria?
Yes, thank you. Yep, that'll be, and they're started to come out now.
Are they?
And so there is VCT tile underneath. We're looking to see if we can clean that or if we'll just have to replace that. And then Island has secured some tables.
From one of the restaurants in town that closed, and they said, these are black and red tables, would you like them? And
Oh,
so
Very
they're
nice.
actually
Tasty treat.
PV Tech right
Perfect.
now, and they're going to be moved over and put in that front area for seating and cafeteria space.
Yeah.
That's great.
So that'll be where they'll come and have the food there. It will be a pared down menu. I mean, it won't be as elaborate, but yet it'll still, well, no, it'll be more than the brown bag.
But,
Grilled cheese.
yeah,
Bag salad.
there you go. But I think that's, and
Sit on those, yeah.
we're working on content. It's just amazing the amount of, it's line item by line item, just everything of manufacturer and.
Cleanable,
Yep.
or too expensive to clean, and every single thing.
Have you heard back at all on the insurance as far as, will they replace the children, the band instruments and things and the choir equipment?
So, good question. So we're still working through that. The initial so sorry, I didn't know if that was, I needed to.
My
Yeah, the initial, the initial
Can't believe it.
response was not favorable in replacing that. However, so that just means we're on to Plan B, and we probably have C and D to still do that, because we feel that's fair, that needs to, some,
Yeah.
they need to have that replacement. And so we
have
even,
our lawyers to help us with that.
correct, and that's what we're discussing as
To,
well.
okay.
Because
To
we need,
identify the language of what they should be replacing.
correct. And so we definitely will use every avenue we can to get as much, of these replacement dollars that we can, because as you see just how critical that is from our prior discussion, and the overall amount to whatever, and we call it just the Highland rebuild, whatever that rebuild looks like, this insurance money will be very important.
What about the fire suppression system that we gotta put in that
Okay.
we weren't planning on?
Yeah. So again, our insurance will pay for code upgrades.
Right.
And so that, those drawings have been submitted, and they still anticipate that they should be able to get, the classrooms done and the auditorium. The auditorium might be the one piece that might not get done, and then we
Okay.
just can't use it until, until it's done. But as of right now, without any disruptions in supply or labor, they're saying they should be able to be done.
Oh, that's cool.
But our good building officials from the Pocatello said that, hey, if you can just get the classrooms done, you can still have school there, and then, as soon as the auditorium's done, we can move into that space.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
That's amazing that they get it done that fast.
Well, there's, and again, our fire department, everybody, they're reviewing them as fast as they can, and so, I think everybody is really pulling together to
The
help.
community is backing,
Cool.
getting Highland back in on time.
Yeah.
And they're working extremely hard to get it that way.
Good.
Oh, it's so nice.
It's,
Correct.
yeah.
It is.
So
Well, and all these spaces that have opened up.
Yeah.
That is
been-
correct.
I mean, that's
It's-
huge.
It's so
Huge.
nice that that there have been so many offers to help.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah, and there was even more than
Mhm.
that. These just worked, the closeness to the proximity to Highland, was a big consideration as well.
So a huge thank you to everyone who wasn't chosen.
Sure.
That was, it's so
Yeah,
nice to have that offers.
our entire community has just literally wrapped their arms around this issue and want to help.
So has the wood showed up has the wood shown up for the
So
gym?
it has not shown up yet. It has been paid,
Right.
down payment, half of it has been paid for, so that is, it's officially, it is ours and secure. I don't have a ship date to that yet,
Hmm.
but hopefully by next time I will have that.
They didn't want it here too early while they were still cleaning the
Yeah.
small gym
Yeah.
and have it get
Moisture.
moisture or
Moisture,
whatever, and
yeah.
so
Yep.
they wanted to make sure it was timed, so when they finished that, the wood came in and then it had, so.
Yeah, it still has to sit for what, a week?
2 weeks.
2
actually.
weeks
Yeah, so that's the,
to acclimatize to the altitude and the moisture. Yeah.
Or lack
Lack thereof.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Although we have a lot of moisture with
Oh, on our SIP schedule, we had Century.
oh, yes, thank you. Dr. Howell made a good thought there, is that we're gonna take the opportunity to, the existing building, even, because we will always be using the existing building to, put a coat of paint, as best we can there. We'll replace some lights, upgrade the lights in the office area, trying to enhance that as much as we can. Again,
Which building's this?
so this is at Highland, since,
Oh.
So
since,
Century was supposed to be painted this
that's where I
summer,
was going, yeah.
Oh.
so we moved them out.
Oh, okay.
And we're gonna do Highland instead, since it's already, everything's off the walls and it's ready to be painted.
Correct. And so we'll paint as much as we can there, just to,
The insurance won't cover that, huh?
we won't cover that, but it's included in our SIP. You know, we were planning on that for Century, and Century is still pretty good there.
I'm so surprised it wouldn't cover cover repainting with all that smoke down.
Well, and we can definitely ask. I mean, they cleaned it for us, the first step, but I
But
don't
how
know.
much can you really clean that?
And again, we will,
It needed to be cleaned before paint.
Last week to this week, the smell in that building is night and day difference.
Really? Just from the cleaning of the
Just
walls?
from the cleaning the walls and the air ducts and the ceiling panels are down, but cleaning the air ducts,
How about that was huge?
immense.
Well, maybe we could schedule
sorry.
the board, and no, you're great, really, which triggered a thought, we need to get you back in there.
Oh, yeah,
And allow
come
you the
walk it.
Oh, I would
see
love to go
what's
back in
happening,
and see what's going on.
What the smell is like, yeah.
See if it gets in our
So
hair
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
time.
Let me-
This week.
Let me call, I'll call Trevor because I know they've got a bunch of the doors taped off after they've cleaned parts of it.
Okay,
But let me see how much of it we can get in to see.
yeah,
Because if it's just walk in the foyer and sniff, well, okay.
yeah.
But I will call him first thing tomorrow morning and see if we can get in a few places so that you can see.
Yeah, kind of gauge.
What's
how
happening?
it is.
Mhm.
That would be,
Mhm.
that would be great.
yeah, that would be, that's great. I think that's all I had on my list. Did you have
That's it for
anything?
mine.
Thank you. That's
Okay.
so much work. Thank you.
You
My
bet.
goodness.
Okay, can I continue,
Yep.
Mr. Chair?
Please do.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, now, again, to finish building out our Highland rebuild team, again, a memo was in front of you with the action item that we request is that you select one CMGC firm and one architect firm that we can then begin contract negotiations for. Again, just as a reminder, last Tuesday, you heard you heard presentations and interviewed CMGC firms, CM Company, Bateman Hall, and Headwaters Construction in that order. And then you also interviewed Resident Architecture Design West out of Idaho Falls and Meridian, and then Design West Architecture out of Logan, Utah. And so if it's our request of you is to choose one architect and one construction manager, and then you'll vote on that. Discuss that now if you'd like, and then vote on that during the action items.
Did you guys have any thoughts?
So we want a discussion now,
Okay.
but we don't want to do it
Is
while
that, is that what we're supposed to do?
okay.
Whatever procedure is, I guess.
Yeah, how does this work? Put your head down and vote?
Oh, I thought we were supposed to talk about it.
Well, I think there's.
But I didn't know if that discussion was to be now or during the motion time, but
I think,
Wait, not.
Now it's
not
fine?
Now.
Have a motion proposed or recommended.
okay.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah,
okay, personally, I know who I would like to pick and who I would like to vote for. I told Jonathan after our meeting with them, I says, I see why you sent them to us, and that they were all really good. I thought, I was really impressed with every one of them, but I narrowed it down to a construction manager and an architect because of some feelings that I had, but.
So are we discussing it during the motion then, or now?
that was
No.
fine.
I think you just do it.
Okay.
And then you can make a motion later.
I thought they were
Oh,
really, really
So
good.
my concern with the architects, I'll go with them first. The resin and design, I liked them. I also like that they're in Idaho. My one concern is how many people, like how many heads
Yeah.
we have involved. There's so many different legs. Like, are they gonna be in communication with each other? So that was my one concern with them. And then with Design West, I liked them, but I didn't feel like they were as prepared as as Resin. Like, they didn't have their design, they didn't come with a design or with, any other designs that they had done previously. So, I don't know, those were my concerns with those.
Yeah, I think.
I thought
what-
they showed some pictures of that Design West.
They did show,
And-
pictures, they just didn't have like anything on
Yeah,
paper.
I see what you were saying, because when I asked, so Highland, would we have enough? He said, well, I haven't really looked at Highland yet.
That's what, yeah.
I'm like, well, the other guys did. But it's okay, though, I thought they were really
Yeah.
good. But I agree that it wasn't as
I think the thing
prepared.
with an architect, though, is it was more of, let's see what your capabilities are, because we haven't given them anything. I mean, this is now, I think, I think I'm on the architect side, not having a design. I mean, I don't want them to come to us and tell us what they want.
Right.
We need to, after some of these surveys and how we've decided what it is that we want. I mean, I was more interested in seeing what they have done, what their expertise is, and I think the difference between people being in the room was just the one group had more people present versus the other group. I think there's
Yeah.
still gonna be just as
Right.
many people in
Yeah,
there.
they're gonna have
They
all
said-
the,
They said that they were out of town.
One guy's from
Yeah, there's
one group
three
is
of
from
them.
Logan and the other ones were more local.
Yeah.
So that wasn't as much of a
Yeah.
concern. I guess I was leaning a little more towards Design West, only because they had more, I liked some of their creativity that they did show from the things that they had done
Yeah,
in the past.
that's what I thought.
And they were they had some creative forward thinking of ideas. And that's kind of what I was looking for, because again, we haven't given them anything of what we want, but yet wanting to see how they could be creative is what I wanted to see.
I thought the Design West was, I liked them, and I thought they could do a job. And just some of the pictures I thought looked,
Right, a
were-
little more
they were-
modern.
Yeah,
had some
they
mod-
were
yeah.
creative, and I thought they were pretty nice.
Yeah, I liked them both as far as the pictures and stuff, because, I mean, yeah, they both had really, really amazing things they've done. But I do remember that Design West said that they would recommend Bateman Hall. I mean, did he kind of in a roundabout say that? Or can I say that?
yeah, well, he said it.
Oh, I was gonna say, because that was a public meeting too.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh, I just about, okay. Yes, but I guess personally, I really picked out a design that I love, but maybe nobody else would like it, of ones that, that the, Design West did. Design, well, this says, this is Resin Design West, and then the other one is Design West.
Design West.
So
Correct.
this is, so what I'm talking about
I
is
think it's
Resin
still even
Design
a
West.
different Design West, because the
It
Design
is.
West.
The-
you
correct.
draw
Same
versus-
name, yeah.
It is, it's just the
Okay.
same name, but this is the resin one, like, they had that actual building that I loved, traditional, like.
So maybe for discussion purposes, let's call one Resin, which is.
Yeah.
And then the other one Design West.
Yeah.
Even though we know there's a
little-
partnership with Resin, but just so that way we're all on the same page.
Yeah, but I thought they were both pretty remarkable.
I agree.
So do we need
So-
to vote on,
We don't vote on it right now.
So
It'll be a
So
little
back to the
later.
construction management, I don't know, even before the design said that they would recommend Bateman, I thought Bateman was,
Yeah,
my biggest thing, one of the big things, not the biggest, one of the big things about them is they are in Idaho Falls, they're close, and they're able to be here when they need to. And I enjoyed their personalities, I thought that they were pretty open and yet pretty personal, and they weren't, I thought, anyway, I was impressed with them, I was impressed with all of them, I thought it was really a hard decision to make, and went home and went through all the notes that I'd made and decided that my thought would be Bateman, but that's my thoughts.
I like Bateman, and I like, having kind of liked Design West, and those guys worked together. And I thought, that's a pretty, it was a pretty good combination.
the relationship?
Yeah,
I guess I was leaning towards Headwaters, and the only reason for that is because I thought they were hungry. I thought they were so prepared. I mean, and yet they knew how to get the help that they needed. I mean, the fact that they have that other consultant in their back pocket.
That's right.
They have the relationship with the people across the street,
Yeah.
maybe.
Oh, that's right.
But I just felt like there was, I mean, not that I didn't like Bateman, weren't they the ones that came in saying they were the blue collar?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and I get that kind of down-home, folksy kind of, and I mean, clearly their work shows for themselves. But for
beautiful.
me, I just felt like, you know, we need someone that's maybe a little more hungry and creative.
I had forgotten about the consultant because that was really important to me.
Yeah, I
that
mean,
they
the fact
have
that they knew what they
consultant.
needed and they knew what resources, and not to say perhaps, I mean, maybe Bateman has all what they need in-house. But I was leaning towards Headwaters. And then my second choice was gonna be Bateman.
I know, I was leaning toward Headwaters at first, and then I kind of went to Bateman, but then, yeah. They're both so good. They seem like they would do such a good job.
I agree. I thought they were all good. And I don't think we would go wrong with any one of them. Any one of the five, you know, I think we could have, if we just threw a number in a hat and picked it out, I think we'd probably still be okay. I don't think any one of them was gonna do us bad.
Who was the one that actually had, I'm trying to remember now, didn't someone have a fire?
That was resin.
Was it, oh,
Yeah.
and it was just the architect, so it wasn't a general contract, okay. I knew there was someone that had dealt with.
But didn't Headwaters do the fire? Or no, was it just construction? It wasn't a fire when you were in charge?
Correct, just the
It was just
the
construction,
Edwards.
but not a rebuild? Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Well, and CM had two kids that went to, two
Right, he's got
went to,
some
went to
Highland.
Highland.
I know, they were impressive,
Well, they're all impressive. They
really
were.
impressive.
So,
When they got finished with their presentation, I'm like, oh, they're the ones. And then the next one, I'm like, oh, wait a minute.
yeah, exactly. I hear you. Okay, any more discussion? Okay, Jonathan, if you want to move on then.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So this is coming pretty much from left field here. But we got, Dr. Howell and I got contacted by the INL.
Not right now.
Yeah, so that'll be into the action items for there. We got contacted by the INL, and they are trying to get more ridership out to the site. I'm sure it's some, you know,
Incentive.
what, some.
Incentive.
Yeah, yeah, incentives to do that and probably reduce their carbon footprint and so forth. So they came and they knew we had purchased the PV Tech building, and they had offered, or had asked, hey, can we borrow some of your, or pay you for some of your parking? And so this is just the first phase. This is just a proposal to kind of show some numbers. Then, of course, we would come back to and present a contract to you. And I have some of those as he's talked about that. In that first table, let me just throw out what they're looking for, and then some flexibility that's in the contract as well. So on the entire west side by Hawthorne Road, there's 172 spots.
This is the green box.
This is the green
Yeah.
box on this little diagram, correct? They'd be willing to pay $30 a space for that, and that would be about $5,160 a month, or almost $62,000 a year. And then we'd have our requirements. We would have to provide a snow removal, you know, for that, before 5:30 a.m. and p.m.
And we would have that in place anyway. though.
Correct, yep,
Okay.
and I talked to maintenance on that, and they would do that. If that doesn't happen, then they would still like to use the parking lot. It would just be a lower price per there. But of course, I said, well, this is a growing school, you know, we don't know. And so what he said is, you know, we could put terms in the contract. Within 30 days, they could go up or down 25, you know, parking spaces very easily. Their threshold that they're trying to at least maintain is 100. Because if we drop below 100, then he said they would love up to 9 months. So that's almost like a school year. And I asked, okay, what if the 100 is, you know, part here on the west and part here on the east? And he goes, it doesn't matter, as long as it's somewhere in that parking lot. You know, we could
we would have that amount. Some of the non-monetary benefits, again, they would, being the CTE school, they would, provide guest lecturers, they would have, career visitors, what the CTE building is normally have, but we'd have a whole slew of INL careers there. And then they even did mention some internships. Again, they would have to be, somewhat older, to send them to the site, but they would be open to that as well. So I guess it's our recommendation with, at least for those 1 year, and then we'll kind of see how this building grows. But again, we want to make sure we have enough space for our staff, for our learners. Even though transportation will be provided, but we know these juniors and seniors will probably drive.
So the two questions I have.
Yes.
So the construction for the welding and the automotive, that's where the red box is.
That is correct, so.
And so the time frame for that, how soon would we lose that parking? Because I'm assuming that's gonna take up the majority of that lot.
That is correct. So you will basically have one row on the far east side,
Where the.
Up against the grass there.
basically up against the grass.
Yeah, we'll lose about-
Timeline is we're still working on that, and again, we will bring that agreement to you hopefully in July. We've kind of finalized, we have finalized, kind of this is what we'd like to.
Potentially a year out.
Correct.
So
It
we
could
would
be.
at least have the red and the blue. I guess the only concern I have is that the main entrance, that's your parking, that corner.
Sure.
And then you start, let's face it, how are you gonna control who parks where?
And that
And
is-
so once you train someone that they are able to park there, when that agreement doesn't exist anymore, they're still gonna park there. How are you gonna, I like the idea of it. I'm curious why they haven't approached the shopping mall and haven't gone to them, and maybe
Sure.
they have, and maybe they've come back and said,
Said
yeah, it's
no.
really pricey.
Sure.
I don't know, I guess if it's,
So to answer your question, we do deal with that, especially around Pocatello High School.
Yeah.
There's apartment buildings that will, in the summer, they park in our parking lot, and, we're, even where the downward building will have that. And so basically 2-3 weeks before school starts, we start slapping
you do?
flyers on,
Oh,
flyers on and of course, they're posted, that for Pocatello High School students only, or staff or students only.
Would they get a city traffic ticket for parking in?
Not a,
Not on our private property.
Okay.
So it would be
we'd
basically
have to
our.
put up the tow sign and that sort of.
Oh, and we have towed. I know we have towed people before, or because they'll put abandoned cars there. And so, sometimes there's some crazies there. So I added up, again, with the metal building there's 408 total parking spots.
you sat and counted?
Yes, I did actually. You can see it if you'd like. So 170 are to the west, the south, where the front parking lot from, between drive-in and drive-in, there's 151. And then there's 85 to the east, and that goes all the way from the corner that really the INL's, they're parking a few there anyway, all the way up kind of that, and then it slims down up to going to the north, around that. Metal building, there are a few parking, I think there's like 11 parking lots or parking spots next to that metal building, is at least according to the drawings, of course.
So if you see, I don't know what
Yeah.
north and whatever, but if there was a way to keep, if it's 100 that they want, if there's a way to keep them in this back.
And absolutely, and I asked
backside,
that, and that.
away from the front door, so
And
that
he
that's.
could do that, yeah, absolutely. So we could trim it down to 100, or say 125, if we need 50 more spots, we'll put it down to 120, and then they would be on that north side, because the bus would come at 5:30 in the morning on that yellow,
That's,
on
okay,
that yellow
was my
line.
questions on the yellow.
yeah.
So they want 172, but the minimum is 100.
That is
Is that
correct,
right?
that is correct. And,
So, but I see that, I counted a bunch of them too. So we're gonna lose about 100 parking spots over here when we build the welding shop and the construction and everything.
sure.
Lose about 100 over there. And then we're gonna lose some out front here where we're gonna have the bus drop off, right?
So no, I think, because the bus drop is already there.
It's
So-
on that one side.
Yeah, it's already on the strip.
Oh, it's gonna be where the
Yeah,
yellow line
yeah,
is?
so that pink, well, it's actually the pink line,
Okay.
so that would be another,
From the city buses?
or our
School
buses,
School buses.
you know, our school buses.
But before it was just
Yeah, it is a city bus, I think there's,
the city bus.
yeah, it would be the city
Okay.
buses that were there before. So it's just an opportunity to, you know, it's schools, we don't get too much of an opportunity to raise a little money. And so I think that it maybe with some flexibility, you know, written into the contract, which he's agreed to, and we'll make sure it's there before, obviously before we present that to you to ratify, but, or to agree upon.
Do we know yet how many staff you'll need? I mean, just, have we ballparked how many parking spots we actually will need?
There'll probably be about 25 staff members.
But you're also then expecting most of the kids to drive themselves there.
Depends on what age they are.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But isn't this mostly for juniors and seniors?
correct.
The,
So we would anticipate that, oh, yeah, a lot that would drive.
and the capacity of that building is 650? What was it again?
Well, that's the question of kind of the phasing, you know, this phasing of PV Tech and
I just
That's-
mean the potential need.
full capacity, Sue, that's what I'd, 20, 30, 600?
600.
Yeah. So you'd be right there.
The kids aren't there all at the same time though, right? They're coming and going.
That is correct as well. Yep, so we won't need that many.
So you need about half of them in the morning and half of them in the afternoon, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Then I guess on the flip side, how do you keep students from parking in their lot? I mean, it could be
We can give traffic
Yeah.
tickets, we can give
Yeah.
parking tickets to our kids.
Sure.
Then they don't get to graduate
Yeah,
till they.
but, and you're right, I mean, because
Creative
they'll be,
idea of use of
it's
space.
5:30 and 5:30 that they care about, you know,
Yeah.
so,
They're already
There
gonna
may
be
not be
there.
any.
yeah, they'll
There
be
you go.
there and going.
More
I guess
power
if
to
there's-
them if they want
If
to
Students
there's
that
parking
are
spaces, they'll just take them, huh?
To get their
That is
rights.
correct. So, but yeah, we would have signs, we'd have to do our best effort,
Yeah.
so.
Hmm. Interesting, great.
So there's just, any other questions? I think I've been here. I think I'm ready. I've been here a lot. Thank you for your time.
So you saying you're done? Okay,
yeah.
thank you, Jonathan, we appreciate you. Okay, next on the agenda is employee services, which will be presented by Carl Smart.
You have already covered.
Yeah.
Like negotiation.
The hour is late, and so I'm gonna be very quick here.
I knew that.
All right, just a couple of things here. We talked about IC, June submission's done. We have one more submission for this year, and that's in August. That'll include all the summer school and updates for that. I know they're still working on the cameras over to New Horizons. The good news is, I think the funding is gonna be coming out of some of our ESSER monies.
And school safety also has a grant that we're looking at,
Oh, cool.
20,000 per building.
Oh, wow.
Oh, so nice.
And so anyway, that will help immensely, so, that was good news. Our technology department is moving into their new digs over at the, what do they call that, ITB building over next to where our PTE programs are vacating, so we're just doing the dominoes.
And everybody is in one spot now, right?
They will eventually be.
There's room for that.
There's room for that. They call it the TSC, the Technology Service Center, which was where Janelle's program from ISU is moving into, and they're working on that right now as we speak, getting it upgraded. They have cleared that building out, and there is an area there that we need to clean out from technology eventually, but we don't have the bandwidth in the new building for that to happen yet. And our help desk from this building is over there as well, so there's a number of them over there.
That's one on Pershing?
No.
The one in Pershing is the one they vacated.
Oh, okay.
So they're moving, that's the building over there next to Pokey, I think it has the,
Oh, okay. Okay,
What, the new sign on it, they just,
yeah, I know where it is.
Yeah.
they just did,
You call it
Okay, I was having a hard
the
time following.
what building?
they call it the ITB, and I have no idea what that stands for. But we're gonna come up with something else.
Should we call it the?
It'll change.
Okay.
That's, if nothing else, we know change is inevitable.
TSC or something, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
where did we move the people that were in there? Are they going to the PV
That
Tech
was
already?
That's the PV Tech folks.
Already?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't realize that.
That was
but-
for a very short time, PV Tech. What, like a half a year?
Yeah.
Right.
Just last thing I'll let you know about is the technology folks did do a computer rollout to the elementary schools, kind of a refresh for their desktops and monitors. And that took less than 10 days or 2 weeks to get that taken care of. So they got on that in a hurry, and it's done for next year. So that's the good news. And I will let that conclude my report tonight.
Okay, thank you, Carl, appreciate you. Okay, next on the agenda is Human Resources, Brenda Minor.
Good evening. I love to talk, but again, I will make it short. 47 new hires. That's pretty good. That's a lot less than last year. Last year, we were upwards of 80, and so 47 this year, and I think, again, those are all, goes along with that, keeping our teachers and that retention rate, and so I'm super happy about that. I just turned to Jonathan and said, for the first time ever, I noticed we have less than double-digit food service openings. We have 8, so that's great news. We do have a retirement of our painter coming soon, so that'll be an open position. And then as far as classified as well, and this is not out of the ordinary, we have a lot of instructional paraprofessionals and behavior tech positions open, just because a lot of schools will wait at the end of the year and not hire them till closer to August, just because, so those people can get a paycheck. It's hard to hire someone in June and then they wait for 2 months before they're paid, so we kind of wait to hire them, because a lot of times we end up hiring them twice. If you hire them in June and they change their mind, and then we have to hire again in August. So those are some pretty exciting things, I think, and I've just heard great response, and so just thank you to all of you. Our classified people are very appreciative of their pay increases, and so thank you. As far as teaching jobs, I left the notes from last time so you could see that it's getting better. If you remember, we had 12 open positions last time I spoke to you, and now we have 3 in elementary, and 3 middle school positions are open, and 2 of those are special education, and 1 of them is science. And in our high school, it used to be 6, and now we're down to 1 high school position and a .5 counselor at New Horizon. We did change the job fair. If you remember, we were going to have that next Thursday on June 29th, and we've moved that to July 20th for a lot of those same reasons. We think we'll get a lot better turnout in July, closer to the school year. So, any questions?
So you're not completely staffed yet?
No, but again, these numbers are lower than I've seen, and granted, this is just my 4th year, but they're lower than I've seen, and so I'm super hopeful. And in our teacher situation, this time of year gets pretty tough, and so sometimes, like, for example, one of the elementary positions, they sometimes will wait, and so that if they hire after an August 1st hire, it has a different category, and so that, you know what I mean, just to make sure that then they have the opportunity to be able to interview all of them over again in August.
Same.
Okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, go. Next on the agenda is Superintendent's Report. Dr. Al.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. First up is board calendar. You see 3 dates on there. I think this is going to be a little bit deceiving based upon our previous discussions. And so, again, as early as next week, I would love to get you together to start processing the information that we received tonight and moving forward.
So work sessions.
Yeah, special meetings, yep. And so, as you see there, it's just the regular board meetings for June and July, and that community prevention meeting. But I think with that will be sprinkled in a number of items, or meetings for the Highland rebuild, as well as other considerations. Okay. So, next up is, I have 2 policies for you, both on second reading. First up is 3304. And that's parental rights. We received some input. We have taken that into consideration. A lot of that language is just straight from the new legislation. And so that's what, again, we are presenting for you this evening. The second one is in regard to the research projects, the surveys. We just want to get a better handle on that. Both of these will also be in the annual policy review for all of our staff members that this would pertain to. Again, that parental rights, a big chunk of that was the notification. So we're trying to help our staff members understand what that looks like, as we would understand what it looks like, including counselors and teachers, but just any significant or drastic change, that we could see in our classrooms in regard to the children's health and welfare. The second one is, again, the surveys. Sometimes our schools send out a survey wanting to know, demographics of their classes or so forth. And so we want to tighten that up and just say prior to anything going out that it would need to be approved at this level, rather than just at their discretion. And so those are the two policies, both again on the second reading for you tonight. And then finally is the membership renewal for Idaho School Boards Association. You can see the services offered as well as the invoice attached on that third page. In previous years, we've been able to take advantage of the insurance carrier, our primary insurance carrier, ICRIM, to the rebates that we get back. However, there are no rebates statewide. It's not just Pocatello because of a fire. It's statewide for all claims, and I would say over the past few years, whether that's weather-related or accidents or what have you. So that invoice amount would be from both our general fund. And so those are the three items that I have for you this evening.
Just curious, is our membership based on school size? Is that how, enrollment,
Yeah.
not
Okay.
attendance?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Howe. Okay, next on the agenda is public written comment pertinent to the agenda action items. I have none. Okay, we will now go on to action items. First item of business is to approve the Head Start Active Supervision Improvement Plan and timeline. Is there a motion?
I move that we approve the Head Start Active Supervision Improvement Plan as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I see none. That motion passed. Next on the business is to approve the Head Start Child Outcome Report for the 2022-2023 school year. Is there a motion?
I hereby move that the board approve the Head Start Child Outcomes Report for the 2022-2023 school year as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I see none. Motion passed. Next item of business is to hear the following policies on first reading. Policy 8106, district attendance area and student transfer, and policy 8311, physical restraint and seclusion. Is there a motion?
I hereby move that the board hear on first reading the below listed policies, policy 8106 and 8311.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I hear none. That motion passed. The next item of business is to hear the following policies on second reading for adoption. Policy 3304, parent guardian rights, 6303, research projects and surveys, and policy 8308, student injuries, illness, and medication. Is there a motion?
I hereby move that the board hear on second reading for adoption the below listed policies as presented. Policy 3304, parent guardian rights. Policy 6303, research projects and surveys. Policy 8308, student injuries, illnesses, and medication.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Is there any discussion?
I do have there's a couple things that I feel like we need to add to make sure that we're in compliance with the law. The first thing I can just tell you really quick, is that we have to have permission. Okay, the first thing is that, well, we have to have permission. We have to tell them what services are available and get their permission. So I had suggested that permission slip at the beginning of the year in August as a template maybe from the Nebo County School District. We don't have to use that. It doesn't really matter. It's just pretty straightforward. These are the services we offer, and then the parents have to agree to it according to this law, because it didn't used to be law. I thought it was a good idea to get permission, but now that it's law, I feel like we need to have that permission slip as a part of that policy since it is the law. So that I think we should add a permission slip there. And then, the other thing is, that says that we are to come up with a process for staff to encourage students to discuss issues related to student well-being, and it was just, that is the law, but we're supposed to come up with a process. So I think we need to make a process.
I think that the policy states that we are going to have that process, and that would be more of a procedural addition, and same with the form and the parent permission.
Right, even though it's a state law though, it seems like it should be in policy, not just procedure.
Well, I mean, it does say in there, the permission that we will notify parents in advance of anything, so, but that process part of how we do that at the start of the school year with the form.
Oh, I'm not talking about the services provided. I'm talking about it says process for staff to encourage students to discuss issues related to the student well-being with parent guardian. So it's a different thing. And I don't know what they mean by the process, but
Right.
it says that we are to create a process.
I think that language is in the policy though. If it's not, then maybe it is in the procedure.
It's just in a bullet. It's just like how, it's number 2 on the House Bill 163, it's number 2F.
Right.
Number 2F.
From that was from the bill, and that language we
Right.
took from the bill and put into policy. I'm just
Right,
wondering if
right,
we
and
put
it
in
just
policy
says
or
that-
procedure.
So it says in the law, we have to create a policy, and that was copied and pasted into our policy,
Mhm.
that we have to create a policy.
Right.
But we just need to create the policy though, right? Don't we
Which
have to
we've done. The process for coming up with that's gonna be a procedural thing, and that has not been fully developed.
So we're gonna, is that gonna be
It's
part of this
policy, and
then?
it will.
So for the next,
Yeah, we can
The
have it
next
prepared
reading?
for you, and if you'd
Okay.
like, you could, there's already a motion and a second. You
Right.
could-
And then we,
Right, and
So
those
we
are all
could-
procedural things that will be developed before the start of the school year, basically.
so
right, and
so we'll have a discussion on our procedure?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah.
okay.
We'll get that
Okay,
forward.
But maybe before we approve this policy, I was thinking we should add that permission slip in the policy, because it is the state law. And so we have to have that permission slip, because it says we have to have that, so I think it should be added. Like, just say something like, parents will be given a permission slip at the start of each school year that must be filled out in order to receive these services. And it says the services are provided or made available, including, that would be including links, phone numbers, referral brochures, all that stuff. So it has to say everything that's available, and then the parents have to
So I think
agree.
that is part of the process, which really is a procedure, statement.
So
where it
wouldn't
does say
the
in there
permission
that-
slip be district-wide though?
Yeah. So the
The same
permission
for-
slip piece would not be like in the policy saying that.
So
here's how
that
you
would
can
just
get
But
be
could we just
part
have
of our
it say
procedure.
that, can we just have it say that we will provide a permission slip?
In the policy,
Yeah, in the policy, just to say we will provide a permission slip
annually be notified by the school year. So the
ahead of
third,
the school
the
year.
last paragraph in the parental rights policy, if you want to just pull it up.
Yeah,
Services offered or made available by private organizations, including preventive health, wellness
Mhm.
services, screenings, first aid, emergency care, and appropriate management of health conditions with parent guardian consent. Do
mhm.
you think that covers
Yeah,
what you
it
were-
does cover it, but
Okay.
but the law is saying that we have to get that permission. And so I think in our policy, we need to say, we will send a permission slip including all of those things
And I,
to be in compliant with the law.
right, and so I think the way it's worded, when it says shall be notified, but at the end it says with
With
consent.
consent.
So,
Shall be notified of everything, and then they have to give their consent.
yeah,
To
which would
receive
be
the
the permission,
service.
is the
So-
way,
But the
Right.
policy doesn't have to spell out how we will do that. So
Oh,
that's
I
the
see what you're
form
saying.
you
So
get.
we would do the permission
Yes.
slip, we just don't have to say it in the policy.
Right.
because
Ah,
it states
okay.
it here that we will do it.
I just thought, okay, that's a law, but then
Right.
don't we have to say that we're gonna comply?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, and then, I don't know, I guess if this could be a policy or procedure, when it says, notify the parent of any change in mental health and everything,
Uh-huh.
I think that has to be gender and name request change, and, I mean, can we just make sure that we're open with the parents and, hey, they've requested this name change, we've just gotta be, that's a change in their mental health, well-being. It just seems like that's a change that we could be very much responsible for.
But I think once you
But-
get
yeah,
specific, you
right.
then box
But
yourself
the only
in.
reason we
Right,
need to
that's
be
what I was gonna say.
specific is because we have to be specific.
But if you start
that.
on one, then you're gonna have to do it for
How are
everything.
you, right, how are you
Yeah.
gonna identify
And then how can
anything
you,
that could come up?
you'd have a list a mile long.
It's just that we can't identify everything that would come up, but we could identify something that is currently happening.
So
But if
Renee's
this
going to
policy-
look
If
at
it's a
the
mental
procedure on
health,
this one
yeah.
and see the
If it covers
specifics.
that?
Right.
It
Okay.
does say it in the actual policy too. It just says if there are known changes to a student's mental, emotional, physical health or well-being.
Right.
So
I think this,
if we're getting, like diving deeper into what emotional or well-being means or mental means, then that's really.
I think it's just a good idea to let
Not-
parents know, have them in the loop.
mhm.
If there's a name change, it just seems like it's
Well, I
important to
think
have
that's
parents
covered,
in the
isn't it?
loop.
So that
I
would
think
be
this is
in
being more
procedure?
general because it covers,
So,
Anything that would come
that
up.
one is not specifically listed here. I mean, you could
It's not
generalize it to say
specifically listed in the
well-being.
law.
It's not in the procedure.
Yeah, that would
Right,
be
it's not
good
in the
enough.
law, and I'm saying, I'm wondering, I think we should add it to our policy.
I disagree.
Okay.
I just
That's
don't,
fine,
yeah.
but
I
how
just-
does
I
everybody
think
else feel? So
specific-
do you feel
are
like
not
we can
necessary.
change a child's name at school and their
Let's get
gender
there.
without letting the
wouldn't
parents
that-
know that we're calling
Wouldn't
them
that be a
something
part of the,
different?
wouldn't that be covered by the general statement?
No,
Why wouldn't it?
because it happens now.
I would say it's generalized, but it's not specific.
Right,
Yeah.
right. It's not specific. And so is it something that we're okay with happening? Is it okay if a child changes their name at school, even a fifth grader or any age, is that okay? And then to not let the parents be in the loop and say, hey, they've requested this? Should we let them be in the loop? I mean, isn't that the whole?
Well,
I think it would be
So-
difficult to regulate every single thing that could come up, whereas this,
Well, it's a
Because
name
there are
on the
tons of
list.
stuff that
yeah,
can come
I mean,
up.
there,
I mean,
they-
No, this
Jeez.
is a thing though.
right,
now.
but I think
It
that's
is
an
a thing.
entirely different,
No, my question is is everybody okay with them changing the name on their
well,
roll
but that's,
and calling them a different name? So it's kind of a big change.
Or you have a second.
So that's what I think they're talking about, in this is a big change.
Where we're
But
at
if we
right
don't-
now is that we have a
Call for
motion
a
and a
vote.
second,
Mhm.
and we can call for a vote, and if it fails, we can discuss further changes,
Yeah.
or.
Right, well, we're in discussion
or-
right now.
and- Or offer an amendment. to
Right.
the-
but what
Right.
you're saying, Deanna, is that if we want to make this a specific thing, well, then pretty soon we're gonna have to specify everything. And then if we don't specify it, they can say, well, this wasn't in the policy.
Yeah,
I disagree with that. I think that if it's something that's kind of widespread and sweeping, I mean, we did make the news, about this, the national news. So it's not like it's just something that is just a little detail. It's
Well,
something that I think.
I didn't say it was a little detail, I'm just saying,
You know,
it should be covered under a general statement that if there's a change in their behavior, their attitude or whatever, that the parents have a right to know that.
to
And
be in the loop.
and a
So do you
teacher
feel
or
like
principal
we
can do that under this policy.
They
Mr.
can.
Chairman,
So-
you could call for a
Yeah, I
vote,
think
we
see
call
how
for a
that
vote,
goes,
call it
and
clear.
then
Okay,
we could look at an amendment, and you could vote
All right.
a second time if necessary.
Well, I would
So-
like to move that we add that before we do a vote on
It
it.
would just be offering a friendly amendment to the current motion and second.
A
Okay.
friendly amendment?
A friendly amendment.
So
Okay.
So-
does that,
I will
does that
offer
Okay.
a friendly amendment.
So it would
Okay,
basically be like.
so there's been a motion made.
Here, the policy's on second reading for adoption right now.
I can do it.
The friendly
Mhm.
amendment would be to adopt those as presented with this addition.
So do I have a second for the second amendment,
Oh.
for the amendment?
Do we need a?
Yes, we would need a second on the friendly amendment.
Yes, do I have a second on the friendly amendment?
And you're talking about adding,
Yes.
No, you're talking.
Yeah, so it was your motion.
You
so
made the
my
motion,
motion is to add
You
that,
need a
that if
second
there's a
from one of
change
the
in a
board members
name.
to make
Right.
the change.
Your motion
okay,
was.
so I'll say that.
Okay,
I
and there,
recommend that if
and I'm
there's a
asking
change
for a
in the
second.
name and the gender that the child is called, we should notify the parent. Let them know.
Okay, do we have a second on the friendly amendment?
yeah, I'll second.
You do second. Okay,
Then we could call for a vote on.
okay,
all of them.
all in favor for the whole thing?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so that motion passed, or failed.
Right.
So we would go back to.
Okay, so
To
I,
doing a motion with the other thing then.
so next,
As presented.
then I would ask for a motion on second reading again for policy 3304, policy 6303, and policy 8308. Is there a motion?
I hereby move that the board hear on second reading for adoption, policies listed, policy 3304, policy 6303, policy 8308.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we've had our discussion. Is there, I'll ask for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, that motion passed. Next item of business is to approve a camp request.
I hereby move that we approve the camp request as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Any, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? I don't hear any. Okay,
Now, did
Miss,
we just,
did you go?
oh, yes, yes,
Okay,
yes
okay.
on that. But did we already do 6303 or did we skip that? Because we did the parent and then we skipped down to camp request.
If there was
Have I
discussion
added-
on
There-
all of them.
All three were together.
Yeah.
all three were.
Oh, okay, because there is something missing out of the other one that is in the law. So do we want to,
What?
I mean, that was my mistake, so I don't know what we want to do about that. If we want to just put it on agenda for another meeting? Because on the surveys, I'm so sorry, I didn't realize that was all in one thing.
Okay, we haven't accepted those, though. We've only accepted on second reading, right?
It was second reading for.
Is
adoption.
final.
Oh, for adoption,
But
okay.
you can send us an email, to see what's missing, and then if we
Okay.
go through it and it's not in there, we can bring that back for another first.
Okay, okay, that sounds great.
Okay, next item of business is to approve the request to change the name of Iron Horse Stadium to the Highland High School Stadium. Is there a motion?
I hereby move that the board approve the request to change the name of Iron Horse Stadium to Highland High Stadium. Oops, and it just popped off. As
Okay.
presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I don't see any. That motion passed. Next item of business is to select an architect for the Highland High School rebuild project. Is there a motion?
I hereby move that the board select,
So we
Design.
did resin
And
or
design.
design west, not to combine resin with design west.
So we just
That's how
do-
John
Select-
designed it.
So we just do
Design
one at a
West
time?
as the architect for the Highland High School rebuild project.
Is there a second?
So that's the firm out of
Out of
Logan.
Logan.
Right,
Yes.
Right.
okay. I want to make sure you were presenting the way they understood it for the.
Yes. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Aye. Okay, the next item of business is to select a construction manager, general contractor.
Jim, was that you opposed to?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Oh, I said nay, huh? Sorry.
I know, I was kind of on the fence too, I kind of
Okay.
waited.
The next item of business is to select a construction manager, general contractor for the Highland High School rebuild project. Is there a motion?
I move that we select Bateman Hall.
Is there a second? I'll second. Is there any discussion? All in
I'm
favor?
really
Okay.
conflicted about
I am
between the two, Bateman Hall and Headwater.
I am too. I'm having a really hard time.
Can I ask Jonathan
Yes, clarification question.
what your experience was with Headwater?
So, my experience with Headwaters,
I think it's.
thank you. My experience with Headwaters was very good. They helped pass the bond. It was for a gym and a music room and an art room. It was a smaller school district, so it was about $6.5 million bond. But I found the Headwaters to be very good, very fair. We actually got money back, but very upfront with transparency on everything. But then as we had some design issues that came up, they were great team members to work through that, came up with solutions and so forth. So I had a very good experience.
Did they work well with the architect?
Yes, yep. They'll work good with any of those architects, or Design West, that's who we chose. So, yeah, they'll work well with them.
Thank you.
I know, I was thinking.
I think we picked, didn't we pick resin?
No.
Oh, did we pick design?
I was thinking.
Yeah.
I know, I was thinking we picked
It is.
That's right, the one's out of Logan.
Logan.
Okay.
Picked the Logan one.
That was the architect.
The architect. So can I amend the motion?
Did you mean to pick resin?
No, the Logan is who I was going.
That is,
Yeah, design.
right?
Yeah.
The one that.
I don't know
That's
what
who we
kind of amendment
chose.
there is to the general contract.
No, I guess you have to call for a vote.
Yes.
Yes.
That's where we're
Yeah,
at.
so we're discussion now vote.
Okay. So all in favor? Aye.
So what's the motion? Just to be-
The motion is Bateman Hall.
It's for Bateman Hall. They're the ones that Design West recommended.
Okay.
Oh, God.
They're not, what'd you say about Design West? They're not Design West.
The architect that we chose, Design West,
Mhm.
recommended.
Oh, I see. Okay,
That's-
sorry.
yeah. We already
Okay,
talked.
all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
I don't know. Superintendent Howell?
I,
We should go back
I
to
am
discussion.
so almost voting for them. I just don't want to be the deciding vote.
You don't want to be the deciding vote? Well, too bad.
Held you back before.
Oh, no, nothing holds me back on anything
I
I believe in. But that's why I think they really both seemed so good. And it's really hard.
I got no skin in the game, so you're not offending, I'm just.
I know, I'm not.
I know who I want, so.
Yes, I guess I'll go with Bateman Hall.
So you're a yay?
Yes.
Okay,
I'm an A.
okay. The motion passed. So we'll go with Bateman Hall.
No, but now I'm having single thoughts. Oh, my God.
Okay, the final item of business
I don't
is to approve the ISBA membership renewal for the 2023-2024 school year. Is there a motion?
Can't she?
Motion for ISBA renewal.
Because sometimes you make a decision.
I hereby move that the board approve the ISBA membership renewal for the 2023-2024 school year as presented.
Is there a second?
My second.
All in favor? Aye. That motion passed. That concludes this meeting. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Anybody opposed? I mean, all in favor?
Third, fourth.
Aye.
Aye.
That motion passed. We are adjourned. I forget that part sometimes.